If you can't qualify to a solo victory cup at prime age of 18 or 19 years old as a professional Fortnite player, you can't blame solos being shit. You're shit for not learning how to play Fortnite correctly.
You've been removed from finals, you're like, oh my god, the hype. Who's going to get those 3 wins? How long is it going to take? It took 1 hour. And then we got it. And that was it. And then we finally had it. It was like, well, all the hype has just gone already.
What is up, and welcome back to another episode of the FNtasia podcast. I am very excited to be bringing this one to you. Things might be looking a bit different if you're watching on the YouTube side of things. If you're listening on Spotify or whatever, don't worry, just ignore that I even said that. How's everyone doing? Everyone good?
Amazing.
Doing good.
Unreal.
Yeah. Brilliant.
These guys are just amazing. I thought I'd up that one.
You.
Yeah, you always got to top them. You always got
I'm
one
that
up
guy.
them.
I always got a better story, obviously.
Of course. We got the regular crew here. We got Harry, Oop, and the big dog Reese Hub. And we also have some unpopular opinions for you guys. We asked you, the viewers, to send some of your unpopular opinions to the FNtasia podcast account on Twitter. And so we're going to go through, react to some of them, give our thoughts, and go from there. Let's start off. I always love talking about this guy first, so we're going to do it. Somebody DM'd and said, unpopular opinion, Mongrel was always overhyped. He was always carried by his teammates. Agree or disagree?
Ooh. I think it's hard to say that when you talk about Mongrel and World Cup. I think that's a really harsh thing to say, Talking about Stark season Mongrel, I mean, that's a completely fair argument, right? With, how good Taysom was at that point and, Stark and everything when it came to that. But when you talk about World Cup Mongrel and early Chapter 2 Mongrel, he was one of the top players in the EU. He was one of the best players in squads, coming second. And then obviously he didn't have as good season in Duo FNCS, but even then in World Cup, obviously qualifying, he was one of the best fighters on the region, and he got his fame off that. It wasn't because he was carried by anyone else.
Yeah,
we're entering a new era of Harry not hitting people for once.
I'm a nice guy.
I love the Mongrel fans. The Mongrel's great now. Yeah, he's trying to change the campaign now. Honestly, I mean, I kind of agree that, and I mean, not carried in the sense that he's always been carried. He had his own individual role and his own individual skill. But there are certain aspects of his career where, yeah, he's going to have things that happen and do well for him. Things like, his draw spot in Stark. We talked about it last week, where his draw spot in Stark was one of the main reasons why they won the FNCS. But the main reason why they got Stark and contested was because he was one of the best fighters, and he stayed to be one of the best off-spawn fighters even when they were contested. I think there's a notable clip of him getting a 3v1 again. I don't remember who it was, but like he got a 3v1, right? Like he was one of the best fighters in that time, but you have to be carried by some things to be the best sometimes. That happens to everybody. It's just a part of the game. I
also think, carried by who? Like, who we can carry by specifically in this? Because, if you say Tayson and his IGLing, okay, maybe that's valid in that term. But if you look back to, previous seasons, am I going to say carried by Mitro at that point? Maybe early on in the times, yeah. But, when they played trios, no. There was an even distribution of skill, I would say, in that moment. If you look at how they placed after that, it was relatively similar for all three players, in particular in the two solo seasons that came up. Mongrel placed 26th and 16th. Looking at that was better solo placements than Benji, for example, in those two seasons as well. So to say he was carried all that time, I don't know. I would need to get the answer of who are they actually being carried by more in particular.
Yeah. So. I think with this take, I'd say it's too far. I don't agree with the fact that he was carried. I remember back in the day, I'm talking just 2 or so years ago. At this point, I think Mongrel had quit by now as well. So it was I remember having a take where I said, there's a good case to say that after World Cup, so once he was, or even he didn't even play World Cup with the Mentos, but after that era where he was playing with the Mentos, you could make the argument that Mongrel was never the best player on his team. I think there's a fair argument for that. Even then, would I agree? Maybe you'd say he was the best on MMB, in the trio squads, on the trio season. I feel like Mitro might have been slightly better than him back then, but cool. Maybe you could make that argument with some of his teams, but to say he was carried, nah, I don't think so. I don't think he was carried.
Yeah, I think this is unpopular for a reason.
For a reason. But you know what? This is good. I like this because some of the opinions I was getting, we're just not unpopular. Like, it's like, oh, please bring back Siphon. Like, that's not an unpopular opinion, bro. Like, everybody thinks that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Unless
okay,
you work at Epic, obviously.
Well,
But,
yes, yeah.
I mean, sure, yeah. Let's go on to the next one. Unpopular opinion, Fortnite OG is terrible. It gets boring way too fast, and they never actually change as much as people think.
Is this Harry?
True,
Is this Harry?
true,
Is he DMing you
true.
this? Is that what it was?
Agree or disagree?
This is so true. I felt like for the casuals, obviously, OG season did exactly what it needed. It brought so many players back to the game, right? But from a competitive standpoint, it was one of the worst seasons we've had in recent times. Tournaments didn't work. The meta was awful. And it was just unenjoyable all round. Yeah, like OG season. Like, I think Chapter 2 will be better because obviously the map, in my opinion, was more competitive. And obviously, you know, the loot was better. But yeah, OG season from a competitive standpoint, very, very boring.
Look at these competitive nerds, always making
I mean-
everything about you. Ugh.
I don't even know if I really agree that much for this, to be honest, either, because a little biased because I didn't actually play too much of OG because I was traveling a bunch at the time and I was like seeing family for like 3 weeks of the 4 weeks or however long it was. So
Unlucky.
so I missed a lot. I was playing on a laptop. I did play some solo cash cuts from a laptop with a controller. You can imagine very vividly how that went. Not good. Actually, no, I say that, and then I qualled one of them. I did qual one of them in 3 games now.
That's more than you've done this season.
Weird
So,
flex.
you know?
Literally more than I've done this season. So I might be the GOAT on that setup. Maybe I have to whip out the laptop again.
Yeah.
But I think again, you have to contextualize this question a little bit more. Like, are you saying it was from a competitive player or a casual player's perspective?
Yeah.
From a comp player's perspective, yeah, it was probably pretty boring because again, ranked or it still was ranked at that point. Yeah, so like ranked,
It was
just as what it always was, and tournaments barely worked. But had you put some better tournament systems, would the OG format have been much better at that time? So it's like, what is the complaint that you got? Is it that the loot pool map was boring, or is it that, you know, the whole thing was boring? I'm just going to generally say disagree because I like the nostalgia and I think it lasted a good amount of time. So
Yeah, Harry did just change it to competitive focus, but the guy didn't specifically say competitive.
Yes.
He just said like it got boring, not much change. I think if you're just looking at it from a general POV, I think I would disagree, but I hear you because I remember one of like the disappointing aspects of OG season was that like when they were doing the whole weekly changes thing that they were doing, like it didn't really change that much, you know, like they would like, and I remember a lot of people being disappointed at that. It's interesting because I saw a tweet literally like a couple of days ago from Cypher PK, and he said, is OG Fortnite Chapter 2 even going to hit the same as Chapter 1? And like there was a bunch of different conversation about whether or not it would. I personally don't think it will, and like I think that's like an interesting like thing. Like I think OG is great because again you just get the nostalgia, but it just comes back to that thing of like eventually once that wears off and you actually look at what's going on, you know, how good does it actually feel?
It just felt very lazy compared to what it could have been, right? Like the way I could compare this, like it's okay. OG Fortnite, the first ever Chapter 1, right? It was like your first love, you know. It was things were great. You loved her, you know. You look back and you reminisce on the great times, and then you see her 5 years later again, and she's slightly different, slightly older, potentially slightly wider a little bit, and like you know, she's not the same one that you fell in love with about 5 years ago, you know. And that was the same for OG Fortnite. She's just not the same. They forgot certain job spots. The updates were mediocre. They didn't add the things that we had initially, right? Like, where's my happy Hamlet? Where's my little village with ice and stuff like that, right? Like she's just not hitting. She's just not hitting the same. And on top of that, I mean, obviously it's different from competitive and like the casual part, but like the format of every single tournament was god awful. It was the most miserable moments I've ever had watching tournaments before, because it was like top 12 gets 1 point, top 5 gets 1 point, and then everyone else was miserable playing it as well. It's like, yeah, it was fun for like the first week, and after the first week, it's like, yeah, I see why we went into this crazy chaotic way of Fortnite, because it was kind of shit at the beginning.
Maybe you should call her Boop.
I should. You know what? It does directly translate to my real life right now as well.
Yeah. All right, let's get to the next one. This one's a bit of a longer one. It's a bit of an essay, so I'll try to sum this up as I'm reading it. But they said, my unpopular opinion is that drop spots don't matter anywhere near as much as people think they do. Sure, some drop spots are better than others, but if a tier 1 team learned and decided to land at Rebel's Roost, and practice from the start of the season, they would top 10 a grand easily and have a chance of winning if there wasn't a super broken spot in the game at the time, like a Grim Gate. Agree or disagree?
So
that could get broken down into multiple stages.
Yeah, I think there was a good caveat there though. Quickly, which was when they said top 10, because saying drop spots don't matter is true to an extent. I think you can really top 10 from anywhere if you're on con.
Yeah,
but winning,
I
don't know, man.
Do that. But there's a reason the best teams take the best spots. If drop spots didn't matter to that degree, they'd all just take any spot because it doesn't actually matter at the end of the day, right? Like, every season will have landing spots which suit the meta, right? This season, as we'll get into, south spots are quite dominant. It helps a lot in finals lobbies, right? But then you go to, last season, obviously, Grim Gate, very, very popular. Not very popular, very, very good, obviously, right? And if these things weren't in place and, there weren't better landing spots, why would the best teams land there, right? There's a reason. It is because it does matter, whether it's down to your surge plans or whether it's down to the loot you get or the rotates out of it. It does matter at the end of the day.
Also, I love how Rebel Roos was mentioning, just a second, just fuck Rebel Roos in particular. Rebel Roos sucks. But yeah, it has to be. Things have to matter. Otherwise, teams that are qualified to land wouldn't be landing at the best spots on the map currently, right? Although the interesting thing is, I guess we do have that testing this season to some extent, like Queasy and Thomas HE landing classy courts. Like it's still it's not the best spot on the map, but it's a decent spot. So there's something in there that people would prefer. Like a nice, quiet, uncontested spot versus one of the best spots on the map. And I think there's a few duos out there that usually try to take that sort of way of playing the game, right? I think Cami and Seti usually take like a mediocre spot, and then all of a sudden Epic buffs it times 100. But like at the start of the season, they take something. And I think it's not about like the total amount of chests usually that actually matters. As long as you have like a set amount of chests, you're fine, right? Like, let's say 10 chests per person, you're chilling. Maybe that's a little bit too much. I feel like positioning is the most important part. 99% of the time in the season. No movement meta, center map. Movement meta, edge map. To really simplify it, but that's the main thing. Just because it has a pretty name doesn't make it a good spot, usually.
No, 100%.
Yeah,
and I think... So, sorry, go ahead, Levin.
No, you go.
I was going to say, I think the better take would be that good drop spot is overrated. Not that you can land anywhere and do well. Like, I think landing in a mythic drop spot or like the best drop is heavily overrated. Maybe this chapter is probably the only time where I would say that that's an exception. Same with like Stark season. Almost every other season, the winners have not landed at the best POI. Like, it's just historically that has almost always been true because the best POIs have so many teams landing there, and it nearly always gets griefed. It's just like, this last couple seasons we've had have been the exception to the rule of that. And now maybe we're entering a new era of Fortnite where like the best teams are just so good that they can win an FNCS off of less games or something along those lines as well. But regardless, I think it's interesting to say that like it doesn't matter is not true, but it's also landing the best spot is heavily overrated.
Yeah, I my input there would just be like to speak to what Boop was saying of like the decision making that goes into like a team picking their spot, right? Like I've seen it where on the day of new season, like I've seen pros sit in calls and literally spend 15 hours just like analyzing a spot and putting it in the context of like that season, what the meta looks like from that season, different areas of terrain and all these different things, like just to figure out whether or not a spot is worth landing at. I think we've seen so many great players who have shown that if you give them a spot where they can cook up a certain type of strat that plays into their playstyle, then they're going to find success there. So it's like, in that context, like it just shows that drop spots matter to some degree. And like Sori said, it's not that it's necessarily like worst spot or bad spot sometimes or best spot sometimes. It's just like the spot itself does matter. And, you as an individual can make that spot matter. But yeah, that was an interesting one. I thought that was a cool one.
I was going to quickly add one thing on top of that, as you said, was the playstyle thing, right?
Yeah.
You don't see Chicho and Trulek landing edge map and playing Deadside and playing Storm, and at the same time, you don't see Queasy and Thomas play center map and play from restored reels, right?
Yeah.
Each team has their own way they play finals lobbies, right? If you're talking about, obviously this is about finals, but for the generic player, of course, landing spots don't mean anything, to be honest. Like in opens, you can land anywhere and do well, right? But if you're talking for finals, teams have playstyles for a reason. Right, they have play styles that suit them when it comes to finals and when it comes to Surge. they have to land spots that suit them. So yeah, to say that landing spots don't matter, I think is a bit of a reach.
Yeah, because in their sort of explanation as well, I didn't read this bit out, but they sort of mentioned how like reverse mirror and they had like landed at like a shambles spot, right? Like I feel like that's a classic example that gets used. But even that, it's like that like worked to their strengths in terms of like how they wanted to play the game still, right? So yeah, not necessarily about being good or bad, but yeah, I think that was an interesting one. I like this one. Next one here I think is an interesting one. Unpopular opinion. Booga isn't even close to being the GOAT and isn't even top 3 all time. All of his FNCS wins, he was definitely not the best player on the team, and Miro would have won them with any other top 5 IGL at the time.
So
Agree or disagree?
I don't know. So I don't know if I'm gonna say that not top 3 of all time. So because like placements speak for something at the end of the day, right? But I do believe that in a lot of these, I love Booga, but sorry, I do think Booga was heavily overrated in a lot of FNCSs, in particular when he went on that winning streak. Because at that point, that was when I was still VOD viewing. I still do, but I was doing it for more games. Every single winner of every single region. And when playing trios, for example, he was tarping at the same time, for the most part, right? And at that time, I was watching Scented, Commandment, and Neji, and a lot of Kami, Seti, Teak, right? And these are like tarping masterminds in trios at late chapter 3. I learned so many fundamentals of like where to position yourself, like going deeper into zone on transitions. I had a whole list of things I learned just from watching those guys tarp in endgame. And then I watched like Booga's team, and it was genuinely some of the the gameplay is on screen right now. It was genuinely some of like the messiest things I've ever seen. And it's just not only like a Booga thing, but this is also like how Miro ends up playing most of his FNCSs as well, where there's not as much structure. It's just like raw individual talent that they have. And I've thought about this for a long time because it's been a while since I watched through like a Booga game, and I was like really impressed by, oh my god, like he's just they're so good in every single scenario. Like a lot of times I'm like, this is so messy. How is this working? And so maybe I probably wouldn't say he was the best player on all those teams. Maybe Miro was, but then it's maybe more of a conversation of like, how do you value each player's individual skills as well? And, do you value a really structured game plan that works really well? Or do you value players who improvise on the spot and are really smart and are really good, like Booga and Miro at the same time? But what I can say is when they won FNCS multiple times in a row with varying teammates, that was some of the messiest FNCS wins I've ever seen. And I've watched Middle East win FNCS. So, it's a lot of just like star power. So yeah, it kind of depends. I don't know if I can say agree or disagree, but I would say potentially overrated.
Yeah, I mean, to the point, right? He's not even in the top 3 of all time. So then you have to say who is the top 3 of all time.
So they gave their top 3. They gave their top 3.
Okay,
so
okay.
I got some added for they gave their top 3. They said their top 3 would be Tayson, Miro, and they're like split right now between Veno or Kami.
That's pretty valid. I don't know if I would need to look at placements all next to each other at the same time to see how that stacks up though as well, especially because like I can't remember what Booga's placed in everything, but I do know I would say Booga's probably had more duds than a lot of those players.
Yeah, that's fair. And then it comes down to how much you rate like longevity, right? Because even someone like, for example, you're talking about Aqua, you talk about Kami, right? Not Aqua, sorry, Veno and Kami. I mean, to me, Aqua is up there as well. Obviously the duos situation, duos into trios. Like he was the best player at that time, and he continues to be one of the best players, even taking breaks up until chapter 3 and even further than that, right? And I just think there's so many players right now who I feel like are in the same sort of caliber of play. The top 2, obviously, Tayson and Mira, right? I think we can all agree those are the 2 GOATs which get debated time to time, right? And when it comes to the 3rd place, it's up in the air, to be honest. I can understand why people don't think Booga is as good as other people say, the people who've been around for as long as all of us have, to be honest. But no, for 100%, this is in my opinion, absolutely fair take. I think there's a lot of players they could put in this conversation.
When you guys think of placements like that, do you guys include World Cup when you talk about Booga's like all-time status? I'm curious.
Yeah, of course.
You
can't not.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
but I
like you mention him, and it's like
time.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, but like, okay, I guess we were talking about like old time placements, but like I see a lot of people use the World Cup argument for like how good is Booga now, or like how good is Booga in terms of like his overall status as a player, right? I feel like we need like there has to be some sort of decay sometimes on what placements actually matter, because I swear World Cup was a different game. Like it's obviously it speaks to
For
his
sure.
character and his history, but. So far too many people use World Cup in conversations of how good Booga is right now, for example, which it just isn't valid.
Yeah,
No, I
of
agree
course,
with
that
that.
doesn't make any sense, right? To do that, because again, it's like you said, it's a different game. I
Mhm.
think the way I would use that, if I was going to use it, would be like in that context, in World Cup times, like what he showed was that he was the best player in the world, right? Like
Yeah.
his performance was dominating. He was clearly far ahead of everybody in the lobby. Now, if I was going to use that today, I would say if he was still that player today, then I would hold the World Cup performance in such highlight, because I was like, he was the best player in the lobby back then, and he's has such great longevity that he's still the best player in the lobby now. And this is what I was sort of going to get onto, where it's like, the thing with Booga is that he had his era where he was clearly like the guy, right? That World Cup era, and even the early chapter 2, like he was still really good. I spoke about this recently on Hotline FN's recent episode, where like he was kind of unlucky with teammates early chapter 2. That squad he had with like Stretch and Clarity G, and I think it might have been Thieves or Twyfe or someone, I can't remember who the last person was. When you watched Booga back then, like he was still like the World Cup Booga, like he was that guy. Like he was having to solo clutch in squad so many times. And you could see just that he was the player. But then as chapter 2 goes on, he sort of loses that power, you know? And we've seen it so many times when a player has like a peak and they just aren't that guy anymore. They might still be a top player, which I think Booga was, but they're not that guy. They're not the Booga of the lobby, as we like to say sometimes, right? It's like, you know, and what happens is when you're no longer that guy, how do you evolve as a player, right? And we saw how he evolved. He was like, well, okay, I need to take more of an IGLN role. Like I'm clear, I'm still smart, I still like understand the game better than a lot of like the newer talents in the scene. So I'm gonna pick up some of those guys and I'm gonna lead, I'm gonna top, etc., etc. The risks that you fall into is that then the perception then becomes, okay, well, so you're not actually the best player on that team anymore, right? Because typically we look at like the fraggers and we say, well, these are the guys with more impact. And sometimes that's not always true. The problem is when you go back and watch that squad, it is so true. Miro was just killing. Like they'd be in the worst spot ever. Booga would be like, guys, get on me. Like, come to me, I'm leading. Miro just deadpan ignoring him. I got 3 kills in the back of the top. It's like, what the fuck? All right, I guess, thanks, mate, you know? So it's like, you know, when we have GOAT conversations, and this is the same for almost every single game and sport or whatever, sometimes GOAT conversations are very like semantic-y, you know? It's like, in reality, like how do you measure a lot of this stuff? But one thing that does hold very, very strong in like GOAT conversations amongst all things is that if there is some sort of team award that you are using to attribute to a player's GOAT career, if that player wasn't the best player on their team during some of those like runs, then like why are we using that so strongly in their GOAT argument, right? And in the case of Booga, I do think it's fair to say that in the three-peat, he wasn't the best player on the team. Miro was. And so for that reason, if we're going to use the three-peat to say, yeah, Booga should be in the GOAT debate, then instantly you just have to put Miro ahead of him. And then there's a bunch of other people that go ahead of that as well, or at least other people who are in that conversation, sorry, I should say. So I wouldn't say I necessarily agree to the extent that they said in the sense of like he's completely overrated, but like I do agree that, yeah, I don't think Booga is in GOAT debates anymore the way he once was. I think that time has passed for him.
I agree, and I think there's one of the parts, kind of Boop, that you said there that you highlighted on Levin was like, you know, the amount of how much do you value like World Cup times and things like that as well. And I think this is always an interesting debate where you're talking about how do you value someone's individual skill, right? Because back in 2019, the players who were often the best were just the players who adapted really quickly to a game, right? They got good really fast ahead of everyone else because it was out so early, right? The game was only been out like 2 years or a year and a half or however long it was at World Cup time. So Booga was a guy who just got good real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So how much do you value that? If you think like, oh my God, that's so impressive, then maybe you put Booga higher as well. But if you're someone who thinks, okay, maybe, you know, in chapter 3, chapter 4, when a lot of the other players have had time to catch up, and now you've had like a time to see who really is the best over the course of more years, do you then value World Cup less because of that fact? Which I personally do a little bit, but still at the same time, it's like it still was one of the best performances ever. So I was just think that's like a little interesting fact.
I think there always has to be a balance of like being able to rate something relative to its era, and then taking into consideration the new era is just better and stronger. And so like, how do we weigh that? And I think what Boot mentioned there is really good in that there does have to just be some decay, like in reality. But in most cases, I think the decay applies more to like less impressive results. So like for me, the decay applies way more to like Aqua's World Cup win than Booga's, just because even when you look at the World Cup performances, Booga's was so dominating, right? Whereas like Aqua's, it was still crazy. You know, they had the sick comeback where they won a bunch of games, blah blah blah, towards the back and blah blah blah. But it's like, again, the performance wasn't that impressive, so like the decay almost like applies more. At least that's how I look at it. Everybody rates their GOAT debates differently, but yeah, that's how I see it.
Yeah, I mean, the decay matters, but to me, I think longevity matters as well. As we've all said here, the game has developed so far since World Cup. And for Booga to even be at the level which is one of the better players on NA, right? It's still very, very, very impressive, right? Obviously, that's not enough to be in a GOAT debate, but longevity has to come in my opinion, into consideration when you talk about GOAT debates. I don't think you can have someone who's been around for 2 chapters or even maybe only like 3 chapters or whatever in a GOAT debate. You have to have people who've been there either early chapter 2 or from chapter 1 and are still going, because there are enough players who are there who have been doing it for that long and are still up at the top of the game.
I don't think
I don't agree with that.
You don't agree?
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that just from the perspective of like, if somebody came through right now and they had won every single major since the start of chapter 4, you would call them the GOAT. We'd be calling them the GOAT. And go, like, imagine Reese Hub started playing comp, chapter 4 season 1. He won chapter 4 season 1, he won chapter 4 season 2, chapter 4 season 3, 1 globals, 1 major 1, 1 major 2, and he looked like the best player major 3. We'd be sat here saying, well, he's the GOAT.
That is such a like,
it's a realistic example, guys.
No,
yeah, that's
realistic.
But my point is that like, it doesn't like, we can't just sit here and say someone like for example, an actual real life example of this, Poyo.
That was a real life example.
Poyo's run that he's been on since he burst onto the scene in chapter 4, is like, he's close to being worthy of GOAT debates. If he was to have a good globals, and if he was to win globals, he'd be worthy of being in GOAT debates. Like his FNCS run has been crazy, but you're basically saying there that it's like, we actually just can't because he wasn't really around in chapter 3 too.
No,
that's not really. I don't agree with that.
First of all, I don't think Poyo is close to GOAT debate yet. I think there has to be a longer period. You can be the best of an era of a game. That's absolutely fine. Yeah, I agree with that. But when you have players like Taysom, for example, or Mira, for example, who have done it and are still doing it in this day and age, it's like, I just don't think you can then go, oh, we'll just forget everything they've done because someone's done it for
But you're not forgetting. But that's the thing. You're not forgetting everything that other people have done. You are just acknowledging the fact that what somebody else new has brought into the time is just more impressive than everything else we've seen.
So would you actually put Poyo in the GOAT debate? Let's say, for example,
I'm saying right now I would not put Poyo in a GOAT debate. But if Poyo was to win FNCS again this season, then him and Peterbot go on and they win LAN, I'd be thinking, well, actually, yeah, you might have to. When you look at the run of FNCS he's been on, it is crazy. If you even just the 2-year run alone, if you were to stack it up against some of the people you have in GOAT debates, his resume would look better.
The thing is, I guess we might be looking at 2 different things. We're talking about GOAT and legacy. I think it might be 2 different things we're kind of comparing. And I do agree to some extent with Harry that I think what makes someone a GOAT, at least me personally, is, like you said, Levin, is someone's a way of adapting, right? Fortnite, when Poyo has come into the game, hasn't changed that much. He's played pretty much the same Fortnite in the last few years, and he might be the best of that current era, but I don't think that's anything comparable to having someone go through chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. And I don't think there was ever a time where Booga was ever not considered a tier 1 in his own region, right? I think from the get-go, he was always a tier 1. He's always been the one that, okay, this guy could probably win the FNCS this season. Maybe one season where it's sort of dudded, but like there is longevity there. And if you're comparing him to the other people that you're comparing him to, someone like Poyo can't even compare to that because all the other ones have had long history. I think a year of placements isn't good enough to be that good, personally.
But this is what I'm saying. Like, it wouldn't be just a year of placements. But even if it was just a year of placements, you still could put like I feel like you guys are you're harping onto this like legacy thing, which is true. Yes, like in terms of like legacy, you can't compare someone who is from like just relevant in like a newer era. Of course not, right? They don't have the comparison of the old era. But when we're talking about like who is the greatest player of all time, who is the best player of all time in terms of just like what they have done in their careers, like of course you can have someone who's only been part of the new era. Like that to me, because for one, anyway, this era now is eventually going to be seen as part of the old era. But it's like,
True.
I feel like it's to me, it doesn't make sense. If somebody comes in and does something that is just crazy that we've never seen before, we just all gonna like literally. So, and you guys said, "Oh, it's not realistic." But if someone had just won every single FNCS for like N1 globals for like a year and a half, would we actually be sat here just going, "Nah, we can't call them the GOAT"? Like if we're watching the Fortnite and they are just clearly better than any player we've ever seen ever, are we actually just going to say, yeah, but they didn't do it in chapter 2? So
but it depends on how it depends on all the other people do, right? Because if you say, for example, right, he just wins, let's say, resub. We're back to resub, winning 6 in a row and winning globals, right? And after his Middle East, so then we've got him winning it all, right? And it's just like, to me, it depends how Tayson and Miro do. Because if you have Tayson and Miro, obviously, if Tayson and Miro end up like Tayson comes second, Miro comes third, and then in globals Tayson comes second, Miro comes third, or whatever, right? And they do really well, and they are up competing with this other player, right? It's not like the other GOATs in the debate aren't just like, again, they're not they're not that far away from the hypothetical resub who's 6x, like doing the 6 beat. Because then if we're talking about how winning 6 in a row is like that important, I just feel like there's a lot of different, or like not just winning 6 in a row, but if recent placements are that important, I think personally, if people on Poyo end up winning this FNCS and win globals, I don't think people are going to talk about Poyo in the GOAT debate. I think people are going to talk about Peterball in the GOAT debate.
Yeah, no, you're right. They're not going to talk about Poyo, but that's a whole different conversation in itself, and how people haven't been acknowledging Poyo as properly as they should be.
No,
so I don't want to get into that. I don't want to get into that rabbit hole.
Yeah,
like I don't want to get into that rabbit hole. But it's like, to me, this is hard because there's a really good example I can use here, but you guys won't get it because I don't think any of you come from the CS community. But
I do.
Like, so Simple, right?
Yeah, of course.
When Simple came in and dominated like 2018 and 2019, everybody acknowledged, okay, realistically, this guy's the fucking GOAT. Because what you're watching on screen is like, yes, we have the Olofmeisters and the Get Rights and the Forrests and all these other people, but realistically, what we've seen from this guy, and Simple was getting that recognition without actually even winning a bunch of events. It was just the individual level the guy was playing at was far and away clearly better than anything else anybody had ever seen. And to me, like, if somebody was to do the Fortnite equivalent of that, I don't see why we couldn't call him the GOAT. Especially since you mentioned, Harry, like, oh, what are the Taysons and the Mirrors and other people doing who are in those conversations still? If the person came in and they were doing that while guys like Tayson and Mirror are still active, I'd rate him even higher. I'd be like, while those guys was here, he was dominating and bossing everyone. That's even more impressive to me. But yeah,
the issue with comparing it to CS is it's so much more easily to recognize that skill in that trio, right? Like, you guys had a hard time finding how good Booga actually was within his own squads. In CS, you can see the score, but you can see the average damage per round, you see the ADR, all that stuff is there available. And also, like, the highlights are so much higher in like a team game or like that. So I do see your comparison with Simple, but I think the one thing that we're missing in that is that, let's say Poyo wins everything from now on, he would still have less FNCS wins than Tayson or Miro, right? And it also then the question is, how much do you highlight just the win itself, or if we're winning, getting 20th, winning again, getting 30th, like what is that comparison? Isn't the GOAT just whoever has the most FNCSs on top of that, or is it like the span of placements that they have within like a year, for example?
No, I agree. I think personally that there's a balance, right? You don't want to just be talking about only OG players and talking about how like the people who is good in chapter 1 to chapter 2 should be in the GOAT debate, right? But then at the same point, I think you can't just talk about just Chapter 4, Chapter 5 players. I think in time, right? Because obviously in this argument, and we've gone very off topic to whether Booga's top 3 of all time, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, let's say this resub again, he did well in Chapter 4, Chapter 5, and then just did nothing Chapter 6, Chapter 7, right? And just had those two chapters where he was just bossing everyone, the best. But then you have other players like Tayson and Mira, continue going into Chapter 7, Chapter 8, whatever, right? At that point, then you would still say, okay, that guy wasn't the GOAT. He had two good seasons, 2 good years. He was the best player for 2 good years, but he wasn't the greatest of all time.
Yeah, but you'd still. But see, you're extrapolating this to a definitive thing. My point is that player would be in the GOAT conversations, and he deserved to be there. Like, he might not be. If somebody did that, there would still be people sat here saying Tayson's the GOAT, and they'd be right to say that. But Resub would also still be in GOAT debates, and he'd be valid to be in GOAT debates because what he's done is something Tayson never did, Miro never. It'd be something we'd never seen before, and that would still be valid.
Okay, in the debate, that's fair. But from what I was coming from, I assumed you were saying he would be the GOAT because the way you're saying it.
If you told me that person, you don't think that person's the GOAT because you want to see more longevity for them, I'd say fair enough. I might still say I think that person's the GOAT, but at least I'd say fair enough. But there'd be a conversation. To act like somebody couldn't even be in that conversation because they don't have longevity to me, or the same longevity as like a Tayson or Miro, to me just doesn't make sense. It'd be like I think it's just, you're better off in that situation going, cool, I don't think they're the GOAT, but if they keep doing this for a bit longer, then maybe I'd consider it. But it's like, to act like, nah, they just can't, they're not in the GOAT debate at all yet. To me, I feel like that just like, it's like, it's not silly, but it's just like, like, what are we doing here? If we rate longevity that highly, then it's like, then we need to just stop ignoring people's peaks as a whole. Because why would I care about someone's peak if like only longevity matters? It's like, that's how I'd start looking at it.
The discrepancy, I guess, is I think we're like focusing on like, okay, what if we had to pick a top 3 like the person picked, right? Would that imaginary resub be a part of that top 3? Well, then you'd have to talk about longevity, right? Because the other ones have had longer careers to show that they had good placements. But if we had an infinite amount of people we could add to the category, then I agree that we could add someone like Infinite Resub to that list because, yeah, he's done something that no one's ever done before and win 4 FNtasia in a row plus global championships. But I think Harry's trying to say top 3. You're trying to say the general GOAT debate. So that I think that's where the friction comes from potentially.
I mean, it's just as people this, as you said, it's a very what's the word? It's a gimmick, the whole GOAT debate, right? There's actually like, does it actually mean anything? Who's actually like the GOAT? Realistically, they win an FNCS, they win their globals. I mean, it doesn't.
One did it on E or one did it on A. That's it. That's what it's like. Come on,
I mean,
that's it. That's
I think that's what we need to say. That's what we need to say.
This is already a far too EU biased podcast. We do not need to.
Oh, we do.
We don't need to incite any more violence against NA because we do have some NA topics. We actually have some more unpopular opinions, but in terms of time, I'm going to leave it at that. I think we'll move on to some of the FNC sorts. I actually know what I want to do for next week's opening segment, and so if you're listening to this now, go to the FNtasia podcast Twitter account at FNtasia podcast on Twitter and DM the account one of your Fortnite conspiracy theories. If you have a Fortnite conspiracy theory, DM it to that account. We'll be reading out a few at the start of the next show.
Bloodx is going to be in there. The zones are all rigged for grand finals. I knew it. Do you see? They could take the zones out of one area. It's all rigged.
I want to see, and I want to read all of your conspiracies. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys have. But thank you for the people who sent in their unpopular opinions as well. There were a couple more in there that were pretty decent, but yeah, just in terms of time, it's best we move forward.
I want to see the mythological Retub win 6 FNCSs after all that. That's what I want to see after everything.
That's my goat right there.
Yeah, that's
I'm
my
just
goat.
saying. I didn't listen to any of the actual points you made after you called me the GOAT. I was just like, I just agree.
I saw his skin shade is 5 times redder than before. Like,
he's blushing.
Yeah.
In your head, you had you and DJ lifting the trophy. You were there, ready at
the
globals.
confetti! Oh my god! Yeah.
I don't think DJ was with him there. I'll be honest.
No,
I was not imagining DJ on
with,
that list.
I'm playing with like Veno or something like.
Yeah. You got to play as someone of a similar caliber, of course.
DJ in that caliber.
Well, I mean, if I'm winning 6 FNCSs, I think DJ's probably won 8 by that point or something, But he's become washed then, and then Amo might come up,
Not longevity, it seems, yeah.
Yeah, no longevity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, welcome back to the show, everyone. That was a longer intro segment than I think we've done in a while, but still nice to be back. We obviously had FNTS week 1 this week, which we'll spend a bunch of time talking about because there was a bunch of interesting things there. And then we have some hot takes to talk about. Hot take of the week. We're bringing that back. I know a lot of you guys liked that one when we did it a couple weeks ago. And then we have some other random news we'll get throughout the day. Before we get into FNTS talk, I want to say, please continue to subscribe to the channel. If you're watching this right now on YouTube, sub to the channel. A lot of you guys watch the podcast each week and just not subscribe to the channel. It's a bit weird if you ask me, like, why wouldn't you subscribe? It just doesn't even make sense. And also, if you're listening on Spotify and Apple, whatever, leave a review. I don't think we've had a single review on Apple Podcasts. So be the first person to leave a review and maybe you'll get a shout out or something next episode. Probably not, I'll forget. But still, leave a review. And also, last thing, if you watch the podcast, if you are an avid listener of FNtasia and you watch every week and you make short content, like you make like TikTok short form content, we're looking for people to help us out with some short form content. So DM the FNtasia pod, or actually DM my account, DM112k, and give us like your portfolio, whatever. Show us what you can do, what you've done in the past, because we're trying to make some TikToks from the podcast. Okay, got through everything. I think you guys want to talk about FNTS.
FNTS, baby.
Let's do it, baby.
FNTS. Enough plugs now. Enough plugs. All right. Well, we're gonna be running back the good, the bad, the ugly, like we did, throughout previous qualifying weeks. I do like that format. And let's just get right into it. What is our first good? Harry, what you got for us this week? What was something you liked about FNTS?
You know what? Moraine and Cade, probably a team no one really expected to win week 1, ending up winning. I wouldn't say it's the most dominant fashion we've ever seen, but ended up winning at the end of the day, right? And if you think about these two players, right, you have Cade, who at the start of this season, if you follow him on Twitter or anything, he has struggled every single season without fail to get a duo. Every single season, it's, I don't want to play with a controller player. I don't want to play with you, because obviously the whole Darks and Cade playstyle, right? You think of Darks and Cade, the games are chaotic as anything, right? And then you think of Moraine as a player, and it's been not the same when it comes to duos, but he has definitely not been the player he once was going back to DreamHack, right? When he won his DreamHack way back when in 2019, right? And you go to now and you see them together and it looks really good. So I did end up going through their games, and it is kind of what you expect out of a Cade playstyle, right? They are keying a team, and then they're getting their surge, and then they're playing Storm, and then that is the game. You will not see Cade carry a DMR. You will not see Cade carry anything apart from an SMG, basically. And to me, it's exciting because it's kind of two players who have been around for a long time, and we've always wondered how good are Cade and Darks when they get good players, right? We saw that Darks when he played with Anderlecht, and now we're finally seeing Cade with a good player in Moraine as well. And I'm excited to see where they go from here, right? Obviously, it's a week final. We have to take it with a pinch of salt, but it's still exciting to see.
The funny thing was that Darks was in my chat when we were watching the finals, and he was like, am I the problem? Was I the issue? Like, he had an existential crisis, like, do I deserve Archie now? Like, what's happening to me? And it's nice to see that Moraine's putting the Netherlands back on the map, and it is interesting that that finals, Cade showed off, right? He showed how good he was in this meta and how good he was at fighting, because every single time, I think we saw in broadcast, it was a 2v1. He kept 2v1ing people. Yeah. Moraine was dead, and he kept 2v1 and 2v1 and 2v1. And Moraine even came in and said, yeah, this guy's the GOAT, man. And I don't know if that's the meta right now. That's just perfect for controller players, because we're seeing it with like Teeny and stuff, and all the other controller players are succeeding. But Cade's finding normal Fortnite within his current playstyle, because he's always the one that comes in and says, man, this shit meta is cringe. This is cringe. Why do I have to sit in a tower? Why do I have to do this? Why do I have to that? So if there's any meta to prove that he's one of the better players in EU, this is the one, because this shit isn't cringe anymore.
Well, it is, just for different reasons.
Yeah.
Some would say it's more cringe at this point. Yeah. But, I mean, it's interesting because, like, the only teammates he's made grand finals with are Coop and Diox. And, I mean, yeah, they're not Tayson. So it'll be interesting to see now he's got Moraine, who's like a higher caliber level player. So to see how they're going to do in finals. Obviously, they won the first week, as we were mentioning here. But like, how is this really going to be in the grand finals? In particular, if this meta does get changed before there with Nitro, you know, how are they actually going to fare up? But it's cool to see like another good controller player doing good on EU, especially because obviously, like I said, Tini's done well. Now Cade, Daux has been good as well. But like Daux doesn't really grind the game and have a good duo and whatnot. So it would be cool to have more controller presence as like in the upper tiers of pros in EU.
No, I wanted to join on to your point quickly about the controller thing. I think this chapter has shown that I think EU is finally realizing that controller players aren't just players who can't hit like surge damage and just basically like obviously Cade does jump in box a lot, right? But they can be top caliber players. They can get you good FNCS placements, right? NA for a long time, there have been controller players who have been at the top. Obviously, we talked about Mirror loads, right? But on EU, it feels like they've always been tainted. Cade even tweeted out a message got at the start of the season by and I asked him who it was, and I won't say but because it's leaking DMs, but basically he tweeted out and said, I'd play with you, but you're a controller player and we won't get Surge. And it's like, now I hope after this season, people start to realize controller players aren't just like awful players who can't play the game. They can still be players who can win finals and can, you know, qualify to globals.
So
I think it depends. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Leva, go ahead.
I was just going to say, with that, I always talk about there's a certain type of player who was very negatively affected by us going from trios to duos. It's like, you know, like the support players, the guys who aren't necessarily the flashiest, but it's like they're good teammates, very good teammates. Like guys like Anas is like the best example of that, right? He's someone that like got really hurt by the fact that again it's like trios to duos because it's harder to find a duo when you're not that. If you're not just like a top IGL or a top fragger, like it was always awkward finding like a good partner. I think second on that list of people who were affected negatively was controller players, right? Because it's like in trios, it felt much easier to facilitate having just that crazy controller player on your team. Whereas like in duos, a lot of people are more focused like, oh, is this guy really going to be able to help me get Surge, or am I going to have to carry all of that damage in mid game? Like all these types of things. But even with that being said, it's funny because it's like, we in EU we've had these conversations for years now, but then it's like on NA, like the bloody goat of the game is just sat there, controller in hand, just chilling. You know, every FNCS he's winning and all that. But you know, that is just a story of comp Fortnite sometimes. I think I'm trying not to extrapolate too much from these performances from Moraine and Cade, just because I've just been jaded too much recently with you know FNCS qualifiers.
Yeah.
But I will say big ups to Cade. In terms of trying to big up Moraine a bit, he's coming back from an injury. I mentioned this on the broadcast. He actually like was playing last season with like a broken arm or like a broken wrist or something.
Yeah.
Broken hand, because he was playing with Quaker, and I know there was a lot of times where like Quaker was just like prepping by himself because like a teammate's got a broken hand, he can't bloody play. So it's good to see that he's back, and I think his hand's doing a lot better now, and obviously he's doing well with Cade. So good to see those guys do well. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
The
one thing I was going to say, the last point was just like, yes, it's impressive, great for them. Dutch G's on the map, controller plays on the map, but it's a Mickey Mouse finals. Like no one actually cared in that finals. That's the one thing, right? Like that finals was atrocious for EU and also NA to some extent. You know, we can talk about NA performance as well, but like when it comes to real tournaments, we'll have to see what happens. That's the main.
This is the good boop. We're in the goods.
Chill, man.
You know,
Yeah, in the good.
I mean, it's a
skipping
good
ahead,
thing
bro.
for them. It's Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
True. Okay. Reese, what is your good for this week?
My good is the time changes that we had for the weekly finals. So if you didn't watch, EU was moved 2 hours earlier than usual. So it started 4 p.m. UK time, 5 p.m. your time, or whatever that time is for
My
you.
time,
Boop.
yes.
Your time.
The real
yeah.
time.
Boot
Yes,
time.
of course. So
Boop
2
time.
hours earlier than normal. EU was, I know NA was like 10 p.m. in UK time, which is much more manageable than like 1 a.m. from what it used to be. Or midday. I was asleep many hours before NA came on anyway, so it didn't make a difference to me. So for having the like say 4 o'clock, I actually forgot that the time changed this week, which was really funny because I opened Twitter at like 4:05 and I saw Boop tweet like viewing party started, and I was like, why is Boop starting it?
I was just so excited, man. I was just so excited.
3. I was like, this is like 2.5 hours before it started, and I thought, oh my god, I can jump into game 1. I thought this is great. So that was really good that I ended up getting to watch it earlier, because I think maybe EU has a potential to get a bit bigger viewership. But then in particular, that carries over to NA, because now if it starts at 10 or 11, depending where you are in Europe, that's a much larger audience who can now watch NA as well. I still fell asleep before NA started, but I'm an old man.
Wow.
But I'm sure a lot of other viewers ended up from EU being able to watch NA now without having to stay up until like 4 or 5 a.m.
No, yeah, I watched the whole thing, and I can't remember the last NA finals I'd watched since it turns to NA Central, right? Because it is 1 till 4 a.m. and for any normal person who isn't a Fortnite player, you're not staying up till 4 a.m. to watch it, or half 4 even by the time it finishes, right? So it is a huge benefit to, not only just for, EU players, but in general for the viewer, for the viewership. It's going to improve it a lot, which is just going to get more eyes onto NA, which obviously then is going to get more people interested and competitive.
I mean, shout out to Epic for single-handedly saving my career a little bit there. Like, it's nice. I'm able to now watch both times and both things now. It's great. Like, I think a lot of people are, at least they said, like, hey, now I can actually see what happened to NA, because it's very different watching something live versus back in the VOD, right? The VOD just doesn't hit the same. You want to be there in the moment, seeing things happen. And, like, when you have exciting finals for it as well, hopefully, potentially, I mean, NA was very exciting, at least, compared to that of EU, then it was all worth it. And I think it showed for sure with broadcast and everyone else's numbers that, hey, there's a whole new audience being introduced again into competitive Fortnite on the other side, which is going to help build up storylines for the LAN as well, which is even better.
Yeah, got nothing to add. I like the time changes. My good for the week was EU players bossing it in NA. EU was littered at the top of that leaderboard. I don't know if we can get the leaderboard up. Can we get the leaderboard up and see where it ended up being at the end? I remember there was a point where like the whole top 4 was just all the EU players that were playing it.
Yeah.
But you see here, it finished off with Clix and Veno, who did amazingly. 3 out of the 6 games they went on to win. Blaha and Mixon came 2nd place. Tayson and Yomzo there in 4th. Pink and Miro in 7th at the end, but they were a bit higher up earlier as well. Like, in general, man, all of the guys that we saw, at least in this round, because there obviously are other like EU players who went over who didn't qualify for round 4, but the ones who did, they looked good. And they did well, and they made us proud. If they didn't make us proud, we just wouldn't have claimed them. But thankfully, they are doing.
It would have been the NA players' fault, obviously.
Yeah, that's it.
There are EU teams now that are at the top of the leaderboard, of course.
Yeah. And so I just loved the moment during the NA round 4 where it's like every EU person on my timeline was just tweeting. All of them were just tweeting about it, which was pretty funny. But in particular, like Clix and Veno doing as well as they did, I thought was really interesting, because obviously they've not had like the smoothest of starts. I know in that one Cash Cup they played, like they won the first game, then the rest was a disaster.
Yeah.
But in this, they looked a lot better, and Veno in particular was playing like a Veno possessed. I've not seen Veno solo clutch this many times in a while, it feels like.
He was a veteran in that finals, right? Like, things didn't go perfectly. It didn't go great in some points, but he was cool, calm, collected. He was a veteran, and the clutches that mattered ended up winning the games. And I agree that EU teams Boston and NA was great. There's nothing happier there's nothing that makes me happier than seeing a sad FN comp report on Twitter, honestly. And it's great seeing that. And again, back to the storyline, it's really cool to see all these people doing well. But I think I want to mention one team specifically. It's Blaha Mixon. I don't think many people talked about how good Blaha Mixon have been, because I don't think I saw them in an end game once. I'll be honest. I haven't been watching much. We watched a bit of the broadcast, watch a bit of mostly clicks, but Blaha and Mixon are coming in under the radar as potentially, like, they were really good in the EU. They were maybe the next up Cammy and Seti on EU. And now in NA, they're showing off, hey, our play style is working very well. We're consistent. We're making end games. And they're not even landing on a great spot.
No,
100%. Average Polish in game.
Literally.
Were they playing? Did we see them? I don't know, man. They weren't there, but they're second. So
no, it is great to see, and I want to add on to that obviously as EU fans, we are eating good. When you just see the top 4, obviously, and you see it's just all EU, we are eating good. But I want to add on to that I think all the cross-region teams pretty much did well, right? You know, you had all the EU teams who did pretty decent. You know, I think like Alex and Worthy for their first tournament, you know, 35th, 36th. I don't think it's too bad. Obviously contested, they didn't do too well last one.
Until you see that they lost to Cease 5-1 off spawn.
No,
like...
they did lose, and obviously that's not ideal. But as in, they didn't full dud, right? They didn't full dud, and you know they're not like dropping out of round 2s or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And even then, you can go to EU, and you've got QND and Phantom coming over from the Middle East, a team who was middle of the pack in grand finals, right? A team that would come around 20th to 25th, right? Going to EU and getting 70th or 70th to 80th, which is a very respectable. Yeah, you've qualified heats on EU, which is very respectable, and to see where they'll go as well is really exciting. And to me, as someone who, well, we've missed this for so long, right? We've missed the rivalry. It is something we've missed for a long time, and it makes NA especially very exciting to watch for this season.
I think the most interesting part about it is that when we're looking at like Veno doing well, obviously last 2 seasons, you know, everyone's been looking at Veno and Taste and be like, oh, 15th, all these 15th in a row, and these kind of poor placements and whatnot they had. It's interesting to see that all they need to do was really like, maybe that duo just wasn't the mesh. Like maybe they are still 2 of the best players in the world, clearly, but they just didn't have the right teamwork. Because I remember one of the conversations we had about last season was like looking at Veno and Tayson's average elims was like abysmal. You know, it was like, I think after 1 day or maybe 2, it was like average 1.8 or 2 point something. You know, it's way lower than the rest of them. Like the fragging power is so missing. And just looking at the leaderboard, seeing Tayson Yomzo averaging 6 average elims in a game, I'm like, okay, you know, this is a teammate that has Tayson on it. They placed 4th overall. They're fragging out hard. Like maybe just Veno and Tayson just were not the team together. As most like superstar teams, all-star teams often don't end up working out in actuality. Maybe just a teammate switch up was what was needed.
Yeah, Tayson and Yomzo had 37 elims, more than
crazy, right?
They had the most elims on the region.
They were also contested to contextualize it. They were contested every single game. So that's what is that? 6, 12?
Maths, mate.
12. That's 12 eliminations on spawn, and then there was a game where they had like 3 different teams third partying them, and I remember there was one clip of Tayson like full Mongo classic kid trying to nitro splash into his box. Like I was getting I was getting the EU the shakies.
That was Deep in Storm, wasn't it? It was.
Yeah, it was Deep in Storm.
I think it was Edgy and Death who keyed them in Cammy's play, just full 1v2'd them, and it was like it was crazy. It's like it's a change of duo, and it's like I'm on the Tayson hype train now. I'm back. You know,
he's back, baby. We never doubted it.
That's my goat. That's my goat.
Tayson is always good for like a 1v2 in FNCS though. As like someone who has been casting FNCS for years now, it's like he always gives us one. You know, and but now I'm sad. Now we've lost that. We've lost it. Now it's fucking Vivid and Kelly and MDF and all them fuckers get to fucking cast that shit, bro.
Now he's on NA. It's not just one FNCS. It's 1 a week. He'll be getting one v2 a week. So.
1 week, one v2. It started.
Lucky NA, man. Lucky NA. They are blessed. What was your good for this week, Boop?
My good for this week was, I mean, funny enough, we're talking about placement, is that there's just no clear favorites right now in the FNTS, right? I'm looking at EU, I'm looking at NA. Can we name a single team right now that we think is currently going to win? I have no clue for NA. You know, we had Taste and Yomza was before this. I thought, okay, they're the clear set favorites after the duo clash performance. Now, Clicks and Venom all of a sudden have changed it up. On EU, we have not a singular good team. All of our tier 1s are landing at interesting different spots. We got Queasy at Classy Courts. We have Malibuka, Murstache, Conning, Swizzy, and Vanyak. No longer now because one of them moved, so perhaps we could have a new favorite. But none of the teams that are looking like the best teams of the region are looking like the overwhelming best teams of the region. And maybe that's because now finally we don't have one set team landing at the best spot on the map and being uncontested. People are potentially fighting back. But it's nice to have an FNCS for once where we don't actually have a set favorite and we can go into it semi-blind, because I don't feel like, because the weekly finals that we had is a great indicator of, okay, this team is looking primed up. But when it changes every single week from Duo Cash Cup to a weekly finals, it's going to be a surprising and very exciting FNCS for us, I think. Until it starts and then someone wins by 100 points in game number 11. But, like, you know, for now, it's looking great.
No, and I totally agree, especially on EU, right? NA, you could, there's a few teams in the conversation, right? You know, you got Clicks and Vino, you got Yomzo, Tayson, you know, you've got all the top teams, right? And then you go to EU, right? And you see the top 2 in EU finals. You go Marine and Caden, Fire Hunter and Artist, and you're like, well, where do we place that? We're now not saying Ryan and Cade are going to win FNCS,
No.
but obviously, but then on NA, you see Vino and Clicks do so well, and now they're in the conversation. So it's a really interesting dynamic where I've never seen a EU be so up in the air. NA, obviously, there are still probably 5 to 10 teams you could even put in the conversation. EU, I generally don't know one. I couldn't tell you one team that I actually think is going to win. Like, if the Boombo was back, it was still in the game, Chap and Tini were by far the furthest ahead, right? Maybe if, for example, now Mersash Malabuka, Uncon, maybe now they're in conversation, right? But genuinely, you could name me 1 out of 30 teams, and I'd be like, fair enough. You can make an argument. I'd say fair enough for it.
That's my board. That's actually my bad for this conversation.
Well, we're moving on to bad next, so you can
say,
just get into it. Yeah.
I can just get into it. Okay, yeah, that's my bad. I don't think that's as interesting at all. I was sitting thinking about this, like, I'm thinking about all the times that I loved the most in competitive Fortnite, and it's when you really see the dominance of who you think is like the best player out of the best teams at that moment, right? I think back to like, we've already mentioned it a few times, like Taste in Chapter 2. You think back to like Queasy Veno in Chapter 4, whatever it was. When you see a team who's just so good and they go on a run, they go on a streak, and you're always excited. You're like, oh, I can jump in, I can watch the team dominate. And then it's more like a lobby versus them. My personal thoughts is always more just like, I love that. I love loading in, being like, okay, back in season X, how is MMB doing? Can anyone beat them? Are they the best? Are they unbeatable? Even last season, we said Peterbot and Poyle was boring because we talked about it every week on the podcast, but it was exciting to like tune in and watch. I think this season in EU, the likelihood of that happening seems pretty low, not to hate on Fire Hunter by any means, but he was my regiment, like if I was doing predictions, I was like, well, that's gonna be a bottom 15 in the finals most of the time, and his placements say so. I'm not just trying to be a hater, although I am, obviously.
But you are, yeah.
You are.
I'm saying he's bad, but like he's actually bad.
I'm not trying to. It's just coming to my stories,
yeah.
But yeah, and then you look at a lot of the other teams up there in the top 10, and I'm like, there's not as many star-studded teams that are killing it right now. Obviously we have like the 2 teams who have won FNCS this season, amazing, and they were fighting each other off spawn, so maybe that ruined that a little bit. But I would just love to see like a team where I go, oh my god, they're the best right now, and they're on a run, they're dominating it, and we're just not getting that in EU this season, so far.
Yeah, that's fair.
I feel like in general, like a lot of the time people want to see like the best players and the best teams playing. I always see this complaint in sports, right? When people talk about sports leagues, they're like, I don't care about watching the fucking 19th team in the Premier League face the 16th team. Like, I want to see the best teams playing. And in Fortnite, it's almost the same with like, you want to watch the best players, you want to watch the best teams and follow their stories. But it's weird because right now, it maybe not necessarily the same in NA, but like at least in EU, it just doesn't feel like you even know who the best players are sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're going in and it's like, who are the best players? When you're going into an FNCS qualifier, who are the best players? You would have said, in seasons past, you would have said the guys like Queasy Thomas, Seti Kami, right? But then those guys don't even get to bloody round 4. And then like the awkward thing that we had in week 1 of EU at least was that, okay, so if you're not talking about those 2, then the next ones you go to now would be Swizzy Van Yak and Malibu and Mustache. And they were conning each other. So like half the games, you're not even going to get to see one of those teams, right? It's like, it's just very, very, it's a strange time, especially for EU. It's just a really weird transitional era we're in, where we've had transitional periods before, but like you still had the staple guys there, and then a couple guys filter in and like get in that conversation. Whereas now it just feels like it's like who am I like watching FNCS for? You know?
To me, right, I think it goes into sort of 2 sides of the argument. You have you want to see teams dominate, and you want to see like the run, as you said, Reese, or you want to see underdogs, and you want the surprise factor of I don't have a clue who's going to do well. I think the perfect is somewhere in the middle, where you have like 5 teams who are battling out to win. You have the top 5 teams, and if an underdog does well, it's exciting. I think we now might be at the point where we're too far to the genuinely. I'm looking at that top 10, and some of these names, like I don't recognize my region. It's like I do not recognize my region. It is a sorry state of affairs. It is just, I think we're too far to the point now where, as you said, 2 of the people you'd say maybe are in contention to win FNCS, Queasy and Thomas, Kami and Seti, right? Didn't even make round 4. And for Kami and Seti, they weren't even close to making round 4, right? So it's, to me, it's quite as you said, I understand your point, Reese, that it can be boring to watch when you don't even know the teams.
But do you know what's weird about that? It's like, if we're going into grand finals tomorrow, I'm still predicting Cammy and Seti to like top 3.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, that's what, but to me, that's what makes it even like weirder, where it's like, man. This is just done.
Bro, like, Nitro
It's actually
meta in
just
opens is not a Cammy and Seti meta, right? You
No,
know?
at all.
Nitro, Cammy,
We'll get
Seti.
onto it. We'll get onto that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So that
I
was
think
my
it's,
bad. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's crazy because if you ask me right now who my prediction is to win EU, I would just say Cammy and Seti. And it's like for
Really?
EU, I'm just closing my eyes. I'm just like, I'm not seeing anything that's happened this week. I'm just, what I believe matters.
Well, it's funny because
on NA, it's just, that's all that cares is the finals. Clicks and Vino won, they're winning it all now. Blackship's in second place, they're getting top 5.
it's funny because I'm spoiling one of our off-season. I say off-season, but you know, like in the 3-week break, one of the podcasts, we're going to do like a power rankings of EU teams. I don't know what the fuck I'm gonna say.
If I see tops in the conversation for top 10, you know, we're finished.
Like, I don't know what the hell I'm gonna say. It's funny because my bad for the week was sort of like linked to what you're saying. So I'll sort of go next there, Reese. Is that like my sort of bad was just, is EU boring to watch? Or not even is EU boring to watch? EU felt boring to watch. Like, it just felt weird. You know, it's like, you know, you're going in, Malabuka came on for an interview at the end of it, right? And he said during the interview, was like, the leaderboard looks empty. Like, it
That is
doesn't.
a good way to describe
Do you know what I mean? Like, the leaderboard looks empty. It's hard because I think there'll be people who are like, oh, so you guys just want to see the same old people win every time. Like, that's boring. Like, let's see some units. There'll be kids that say stuff like that. But the thing I'll say to sort of counter that, and the thing that I think is most damning of EU right now, is if I ask you, what is NA's identity as a region, you can tell me so many things about like what's happening in NA, and there's like a feel for it. There's like a clear like identity. There's a clear feel to the region right now. There's clear, key players and key pieces and key dynamics going on within the region that are really interesting. If I ask you the same question about like what is the identity of EU right now, it's like it just feels so. Everything just feels missing about it, you know, and you can look back in time at different points in EU and like have like a much better answer for that. If you look back to like chapter 4, right, a lot of those seasons it was like it's a battle of the big 8, right? Cammy Seti, Malabuka Thomas, Taysom Mustache, Queasy Veno. It's a battle between those guys. Who's gonna win this season's FNCS, right? Even before that, right, there was always big narratives around, you know, Tayson and back in the day when Hen was involved. Like, there's just always been like clearer like identity to the region and what's going on, who's key, who's important, this, that, and the other. And right now, yeah, man, that just feels very, very missing from EU, and I feel like that has made it boring to watch.
I have the narrative for you. Don't worry, I've got it here in this notebook. It's
Teach
can
me.
someone that is not from Russia or Ukraine win an FNCS?
At this point, we might get
CS
console players
not
winning.
Akira on PS5, baby, he'll team his way there. Let's go.
Team his way there, bloody O'Shea there. I don't know. That's how I feel about EU right now.
It's just every time I look at that top 5, it just gets worse. I actually don't think I've ever looked at that top 5 and like, you know what, this is actually, I now feel hope. Every time I look at it, I'm more and more disappointed. But now I just looked at it, I'm like, no disrespect, but I've seen Gentleman Polish in the top 5 of EU FNCS, and I'm just like,
hey, they're 8th. They're 8th. You're looking at you're looking at the screenshot from the one game before, you know, in game 5.
But even like they're 8th, and you know, you just got like. It's a disaster. It's an absolute disaster.
I think the biggest issue is that these guys need cooler names. You know, like what is Fire Hunter as a name, or Ortis? You know, what is the taste?
Fire Hunter's cool.
Actually,
Come on,
that's
that's a
Fire
cool
Hunter's
name.
pretty
Cool
sick.
name.
Yeah, but his name in game isn't Fire Hunter.
It's just Russian characters.
It's just Russian characters. Yeah.
And most times, these guys. The issue is there's just not enough personalities in EU to make up for the people that have left. Like EU just always seems like, okay, these are the GOAT players, the God players, not versus, okay, these are the good creators, the content creators, or the streamers that we know have personality. I couldn't tell you a single thing about Marine, and I've met him, right? Like, or someone like
he plays football. I know that.
Yeah, he plays football and he broke his hand. Like, I know Fire Hunter, everyone hates. Oh, sorry, no, Fire Hunter, not everyone hates. Artist, everyone hates him in ESL. iDrop. Harris, newcomer, Turks and Chicho, you know, like your basic Balkans that like always dominate and do pretty well. You know, like there's not enough volume, and maybe it's not their fault, maybe, but like we just don't have enough personality in pro players in EU. There's just not enough people shit talking or beef in that respect.
So I'll show you from a content perspective where like I felt this the most. So last season, right, when we would do those like videos for the FNtasia podcast, right? You know, on the thumbnails, when it's an NA video, you know, on the thumbnails, you slap on a Clix, you slap on a Peter bot, you know, For EU, you slap on Mongo Savage if you want it to get views, right? Or resub. But you slap on, if you want to do players, you slap on Mongo Savage. Okay, those guys gone. Okay, so now usually like you'd probably slap on like a Veno or Tayson, right? They're quite recognizable faces now. Can't put those brothers on anymore. You know, Seti, you maybe, okay, so now you're gonna slap on like a Seti, Cammy, maybe like a Queasy Thomas. Those guys just aren't doing good enough for you to be talking about them anyway.
Yeah.
You know, but there's nobody identifiable anymore for us to
bad
like
when
even
the
like
broadcast has like the Fortnite character like that. Yo, here's Marine and Cade.
Yeah.
It's like the only
who
players
are
they have
they?
pictures of are just Mustache and Malaboka. So every
you just keep
package
showing
is
them the whole
just
time,
those two pictures as well. And
Always
then,
those two.
yeah.
You know what? Like on top of that point is like I remember back in trios, right? Or even in duos, right? In chapter 3, even some point chapter 4. A tournament happens, you see who wins, you go, I want to watch their Cash Cup video, I want to watch the finals video, right? Who's going to watch a Fire Hunter and Artist second place? Let's be real. Like,
do they even post it?
No, but that's even more to the point. Like, are Marine and Cade posting it? Does anyone know if they've uploaded a video on it? It's like
I'm checking now.
Is this just the Hate Fire Hunter podcast, bro? This guy's just getting smoked across this whole pod. Levin, you need to give your opinion on him now. Come on.
I typed Marine on YouTube to try to check his channel, and some buff like gym lad is just like that's the only result coming.
Yeah,
up.
that's Marine. He broke his arm and he just went to the gym loads.
Why he's never getting shredded again?
His YouTube
broke his
profile
hand.
picture is just an M. He doesn't even have a YouTube profile
even...
picture. It's just M for Marine nowadays.
Last
1 year
video
ago
is a year.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, there's no content. Like they're literally it's like it's not even who's gonna watch. It's like no one uploads the content from winning a Cash Cup or winning an FNCS round or anything like that. So I don't know. As you said, I think EU is a bit cooked this season.
You know when someone wins an FNCS goes live afterwards, like what is the viewership going to be on someone like Marine and Cade, like when they go live after winning FNCS? Yeah, it's like 1,000 viewers. You know, like
no for Cade it'll be like 10 million. All the console kids just going in this chat
true,
like
true.
EU controller player won FNCS. Get in this
did
chat
it for
now.
us. Yeah.
What's your sense? What's your edit sense? What's your
the funny thing about that is that like someone like Teeny has like if I'm looking at his Twitter account now, like his tweets are getting like 1,000 likes for just the most random shitty posts. So like there's something there that I guess maybe a controller player can make off of, but yeah, I don't know. I guess you have to start getting 28 kill wins in duo Cash Cup in order to get that level of notoriety now.
If Akira wins and loads up his stream on the PS5, like can we just close out the
Just hear the fan. Yeah, we suck.
Yeah.
Well, there's going to be even more complaining here. Harry, what was your bad for this week?
Blood X quad to heats. Basically, that is my bad for the week. This qual format, if Blood X can have 2 good days of FNCS and qualify to heats, I think there's something wrong with the way you qualify to heats.
You mean if Quaker has 2 good games?
Yeah, if Quaker has 2 good, if Quaker has 2 good days and Blood X is live coaching him, then then they qualify. Like, I can't believe, to me, right? We had the 2 seasons we just had with the formats, and the thing they took out of it was, well, we'll get into the ELO situation in a minute, but was to keep the heat system the same. Make it 2 weeks. Basically, most teams, as speaking to Kinch, most teams qualify off 1 week anyway because of the fact that there's the thresholds to make it to heats it's obviously top 250, but then like you're not going to get two top 225s and qualify to heats. You need to get like a 180, 170, 160 or whatever, right? So teams qualify to heats off 1 week. So the fact we didn't add an extra week or an extra 2 weeks or anything like that to make it so, first of all, it feels more exciting and interesting. You can build storylines, but on top of that, teams can qualify of 1 good week. BloodX and Quaker can now come top 10k at every single tournament, and 3 weeks later they're in heats. And it's like not just them, but there's so many teams like that where the biggest problem to me is it doesn't reward consistency. It rewards two good days of FNCS, and that's it.
Yeah, from I'll use my own Middle East one as a practical example here, where we were on 220 points in the round 2, which was, there's only 3 rounds in Middle East, so you essentially needed to get top 180-ish in that, and that was roughly 262 points, I think. So the difference between us getting 0 series points and calling to lower heat, like lower bracket, is literally 40 points, and it's one single game. So it's like, it's not only is it dependent on one day, for us in particular, it came down to dependent on a single match. So it's like, if you do good in that one game, you call heats. If you don't, you get 0 series points. It's like, oh, that seems fair. You know?
No, exactly.
That seems like a good system, right?
I don't know why they removed the series points lower down. Like, as in, you can add series points for like even top 500 or something like that. Make it gradually increase, right? Because then it rewards that little bit of consistency, even when you only have 2 weeks.
I agree. Yeah, it doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense for the qualifying to heats, but also just like system the round 2 and 3s were just horrible. So just generally,
I have a lot of points to say about it is. But yeah, main thing, BloodX is qualifying. Something's wrong then.
The weird thing is also now, like, I don't understand the playstyle that Epic wants people to have now, right? Because we're removing, first of all, Elo got removed for those 2nd and 3rd rounds, which I guess is part of the qual format now. So like, okay, now we want all the good players to do well because they're just going to stomp on Little Timmy that made top 2,000 in round 2. But we also want Little Timmy to do really well so now we're going to make top 2,000 go to top 1,000 so that they have a sense of accomplishment making it to the next round. I don't see the identity or like the vision that Epic has currently with this qual format. So, hey, how do you want people to play? Do we want stat games? Do we want unstat games? Do you want people to get more kills? Do we want people to be more placement orientated? Because the format is more placement orientated, right? It's 2 points per elimination, 65 points per win. But then because you have no elo, now you're forced to W key because all the good teams are now going to be advancing to playing well, and you're playing against worse lobbies, so you're going to be able to get more kills and stuff. So that whole thing just doesn't make sense to me. On one side, it's nice that all the good teams are now qualifying to finals, right? For the storyline, for the consistency. There's no way you dud an FNCS now, I think, if you're a pro team. There's still a way if you suck and you're just not taken seriously, and we'll talk about that in my ugly. But at the same time, it doesn't make sense. I don't like, we're changing to 250 for round number 3 as well with series points, but they're not changing the other. It feels like we have one team making. We had a meeting over here in one room and a meeting in the other room, and then we play Chinese whispers in order to mix it up together. And here we are.
Yeah, I think like so on that, I think it benefits the best players.
Yeah,
absolutely, right. So as you said, if you're a good team and you dud, that's on you. And you don't really have to be dropping 30, 40 bombs every game. You don't. No. Just based on the format system. It's just that's what the best teams are doing because it's so easy. Yeah. But it also makes it so you could say from a perspective that this is objectively the best way to get the best teams to qualify through.
Right.
I don't think it's good, but that's the argument you could make. Objectively, you will get the best teams in grand finals, but that doesn't make it interesting to watch or interesting to play. Because as someone who was not one of the best teams in that lobby, it was hellishly RNG. Like, if you decide to get W keyed by the good team in that lobby and you're dead, it's like, okay, it's over. What if they decide to W key another team and then I make it to top 2 or 3 and I've just got the most random placement points because there's like such a skill discrepancy in this lobby. So it's like, okay, in the games that we were doing good in the first couple of games because we didn't, and then in the last few games we just got W keyed every single game, and then it was also just by idiots who just nitro in our box for no reason, but that's a whole other story. So it's like, yeah, sure, the best teams are going to do good, and that's great for getting to grand finals. But as like a viewing and playing experience, that is not objectively the best thing in my eyes at all. It was actually just quite frustrating because there's the huge amount of randomness into who is in your lobby in that time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we're already talking about it, and it is mildly. I'll quickly say it's just that removing Elo might be the worst decision Epic have made in recent times. I do not understand it from any point of view. From a playing point of view, from a viewership point of view. I have never had less enjoyment watching Fortnite than those 6 hours on Saturday. I genuinely, that round 2 and round 3 was the least enjoyable Fortnite I have ever watched. I am watching good teams key shit teams. I'm watching W key games for 6 hours straight. I'm literally, that's all I'm watching right now.
Just qualify next time, Harry, then. You know?
Yeah, I'll just qualify.
You don't have to
then
watch it then.
Then I can get keyed for 6 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it was just the most infuriating and just boring. Like, I was just watching your stream, Boop, and every time you're like, oh, Chapantini have got 25 kills again. Oh, now we got Vico and Flick. Yeah, now we got Vico and Flixie with 25 kills. And now we got Malibuka. It's just like, I don't care. Like, FNCS should be stacked. The only thing it's done is make it closer to rank than anything else. Like, if that's their goal, congratulations. You've made FNCS the most boring thing to watch. I've never been so frustrated. Like, series points, whatever, fine. But removing Elo, the one thing that makes it so, first of all, not even just catcher mechanics, but second of all, if you're doing well, you know, say for example you're doing well and then you win the high elo game, you're so far ahead of everyone because you did well in the good game, you get rewarded for it by being so far ahead. Now it's you get rewarded for killing shit players, and that's not enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, I know.
I think this goes back to the identity thing Boop was sort of talking about. It's like, what do we want this to be, right? Because it's like, again, I think most of us associate FNCS with like the best players in the most stacked and most difficult games, right? And so you want to see that theme continue throughout. And in an ideal world, like from week 1 towards, you know, grand finals, that would progress. And it's like the best players in the most stacked games, and it just gets harder with even more refined of the best players. In an ideal world, I feel like that's how it would progress. Yeah. Right now, like, it just doesn't reflect that, right? But it's like, so understanding from like Epic, like, what do you guys want the playstyle to be? What do you guys want this to be? Regardless of what they might want it to be, at least from the feedback that I think we've seen, is people just don't enjoy watching it. Right, like right now, like,
or playing,
it's just like
which is the two important parts, right?
Yeah.
You know,
right. So
it's a competition, but like it also has to be entertainment. Like you're selling a product here and marketing it. There's one thing you could do if you're playing next week. I'm going to say this with big hypotheticals because you know you shouldn't do this, but hypothetically with this format. If you are in NA, for example, you can hypothetically get into the same game as a pro player every single game, and hypothetically, they'll just kill the lobby for you, and hypothetically, you'll just farm placement points, and hypothetically, you'll just qualify guaranteed. That is how you can literally qualify every round of that round 2 and round 3 is by getting into the same game as Clicks and Veno, Peterborough and Poyo, whatever, or the people that are streaming, and they will kill the lobby for you. That is how you qualify now, and that is horrible.
So I actually had this in the solo cash cup yesterday, not from stream sniping, but because Phalix was in my game and he was WKing everyone and he had all 3 coins, I could see exactly where he was. So he was literally just creating a dead game for me. So I just looked at the map and I just stayed at the opposite side of the map from him every single time. So I was on full dead side and he was congested out. And anytime I saw him running close, I just rotated around to the other way.
But the funny thing is he's making dead side for you.
Yeah,
clearing the path.
He was just cleaning everyone out and I just kept rotating around. And then he died like 15th and just played out the end game. I was like, awesome. Cool.
Cheers,
yeah,
mate.
I literally had the exact same on Brazil. Literally, Muzz was running around killing the whole lobby, and it's first moving, or not even first moving, the touching zone, 8 zone, and it's 5 people alive. And all I've done is I've seen him, as you said, and I just gone, oh, I'm going this way, and it's 50-50 rotate, he's going up here, oh, I'm going to go down this way now. I'm going to go the opposite way. And it's like, to add on to your point, it's thinking, Boopers, not only were you talking about, oh, you can get qualified from doing that, but if you're a qualified team, what is stopping you in round 2s and round 3s from, oh, this guy, I know it's just the first 50 players get into the next game, right? I could just Q snipe this guy, hypothetically, every single game and grief him every single game. Without fair. If they're a team contesting you, if they haven't qualified already, what's stopping you from doing that? Like,
get awkward.
Yeah, But it's just, to me, it's like, we've seen it before, and removing Elo just... I don't see a single benefit. I cannot even imagine.
I was gonna say, friend of the show, Kinch Analytics,
Yeah, I was gonna mention
is a fan of the removal of Elo. And he had some points here, so I'm gonna throw his points at you, Harry, and I wanna see what you have to say. So some of the positives he said were that it's a lot fairer because there's no free catch up when you're doing badly, no hard lobbies just because you're doing well, shorter queue times, so there's less variation in wasted time, which makes it fairer. And no more, I didn't get into my final game and didn't qual because I have too many points for the game.
Okay, so I'm gonna go through every single one of those points. So we've got the first one, which was about the first one was about the
No free catch up.
No free catch up. To me personally, like I believe that if you do well and then you get into high elo, it's kind of a skill to be able to do well in the high elo games, and to me it's competitive, right? Obviously the catch up is frustrating, right? If a team drops down elo, gets a 30 bomb, that's frustrating, right? But at the end of the day, to me, the skill in Fortnite is how do you do in the best lobbies, right? And all that happens when you remove the elo is you make every lobby like a catch-up game. And it's just RNG how many pros you get in your game. It's not, oh, we're on shit elo, we're going to have bad players, we can be more aggressive, or in a good elo, we might be in a stat game, we need to play differently, right? It's pure RNG, unless, you're Q sniping, whether you get good or bad players in your game, and whether it's going to be a 40 moving or a 15 moving. It's just pure RNG.
So to playing devil's advocate then, the response to that would be two things. One thing, if you are in this lobby and you can't handle being keyed by a better player, then you shouldn't be in this lobby. If your argument is that, you want to have the best of the best, like you want to have the best quality game, highest quality game, then that means someone is in that lobby who's not supposed to be in that lobby and they get eradicated. Second thing would be, sorry, Reese is just pointing at himself there.
Yeah.
Second thing I guess you would say would be the fact that you mentioned how like you can come back or whatever, right? Like when you come back, it's not as skillful as obviously being able to do well in the difficult lobbies, but like that means like, but that happens regularly where people are rewarded for not being able to play. So this eradicates that. Like now we don't have to worry about the fact that people aren't doing well in these like, super easy lobbies.
I think that's a bigger issue. I think like the whole people catching up is more so opens or duo cash cups. That happens way more often, right? Because there's so many players who qualify, so many players playing and only 50 qualified. There is going to be most of them are dropping 40 bombs last game to qualify. That's absolutely fair enough, right? But when you have a top 1,000, what are you going to say, 11?
Oh, I was going to say, sorry, I forgot what I was going to say, but then I just wanted to add to it. Also, on top of that, I would argue, isn't the problem like no, you don't have to key. Nobody's forcing the players to key here. So wouldn't it just be if the quality of players around the pros who are keying was better through either some sort of format change beforehand, etc., they wouldn't feel inclined to key, and therefore this wouldn't be a problem.
Oh yeah, if it was top 250, then it would be a completely different conversation. But the conversation isn't that it's top 2. The conversation is there's
so
no elo.
No elo. Your problem is not no elo. Your problem is that the format doesn't work.
Well, there's no elo. With no elo, yeah. So half the problem is the no elo. If it was
elo wouldn't be a problem if it was a good format.
If it was top 250, right, and we had the 250 best teams and there was no elo, I think that's pretty fine, because in top 250 the skill difference isn't that much. You're going to get pros in every single game. It's going to be a very, very similar skilled lobbies every single time, right? And the difference between the best player and the worst player in the lobby isn't going to be that drastic. In top 2K, and you are getting that difference is insane. It is resub versus chat. That is a level.
Is not top 2K, right? Let's put some respect on my name
this
here.
This guy down here, yeah, he's not. He doesn't belong in the same game as Chap and TD, right? Mm-hmm. But that's my problem. Is it's a combination, like everything always is. Like we could also argue that yes, no elo would be better if we didn't have something which you could get into anyone's box with in 0.1 second. If we had the meta from last season with just fizzers, Chap and Tini are probably, they still have Grimcoin and, they still probably would keep it. They're not killing people in 0.1 second. They're not literally getting a tag in the box, kill them, next guy, get in the box, tag them into the next box. And it's a 50 moving, right? So it's a combination of things. It's never just this is the only problem. We need to just eradicate this. But it's a combination of the format, the meta, and the no elo all together in one. The only argument which is fair is queue times, but queue times are fine in top 1K and 2K most of the time. In top 250, I understand it because you can get 8 to 9 minute queues because of Elo.
From someone that's had to watch the whole weekend and watching both regions, it's that I understand the need for something to feel competitive and be competitive because it is a tournament for a lot of money at the end of the day, but it also has to be good to play and fun to watch. I think that's such an important part to it because there is no Fortnite without the view aspect or the sponsor aspect or the collaborations aspect. It needs to be something that's good to watch. If I'm sitting there and I'm spending my Saturday and Sunday afternoon not touching grass and watching Fortnite, I want to see a game where Malibuca is going to be up against Chap randomly in the W, like potentially running into each other, right? Because we only see that once a week in a duo cash cup. Not even because some of these guys don't even qualify, and not even in the finals sometimes because that finals also doesn't feel like it's meaningful anymore. Like we want to watch that. That's what we signed up to watch FNTS for. Sure, for a math guy like Kinch, this is the most best equal way to have Fortnite is having this happen, having that happen. But Fortnite as it is, we have built up 4 to 5 years of FNCS, maybe less, 4 years of FNCSs where we're used to having one thing, and now to have that completely overturned and seeing Chap and Teeny punch Jimmy 775 in the face every single game and drop a 35 kill win just doesn't feel like Fortnite anymore. However, I think there's an interesting point that you made about the pros don't need to W key. I guarantee if nobody told you that there was no Elo this weekend, we'd have stack games this weekend. It's a mentality shift. Like, I'm going to have shit plays in my game. I mean, might as well key now, right? But if nobody told you that, they would have all played late game and we would have had stackers 100%.
I mean, it depends, right? Because as pro players, you can tell if they're a shit player pretty easily. How many times do you watch a team key, like, beam someone and like, this guy's awful, and they run through them in a second? Like, they would have found that they wouldn't. They play against Reese in Middle East, but they wouldn't have keyed as much. I agree, but you would have still seen Flixie and Vika
potentially
going up to a player. This guy's awful, I'm keying him. This guy's awful, I'm keying him. And then someone would have found out very easily. Like they look in the compete tab, was like, wait, this team's got 200 points. This team's got 10. How are they in the same game? This isn't fair. Well, yeah, it's not fair, but this is what we just watched.
Yeah.
It's just boring. That's it. Like,
all
the same shit.
It's just boring.
I do understand the nuances, and I understand that in say a top 2K lobby without Elo, I'm sure there's ways you can make it better, but that's currently what we have. So removing Elo just doesn't make sense. So in the future, where we have a better format for the rest of it, you can then look and say where's the right cut off to remove Elo. But right now, just snooze fest.
No, I agree with all of you guys. I just want to be the devil's advocate a bit.
No,
what was I think we covered most of the round. I know Reese, you had it as your thing, but I think we've basically covered it. The only other ugly I sort of had was the server lag stuff. I just wanted to show some clips, man. This shit was just funny to me.
And
I found it funny because this has happened to me so much when I'm playing with Mini. I think they've low-key fixed it. Wasn't it like slightly better, like the server lag?
I didn't get it in.
Yesterday it felt good.
Yesterday,
I didn't get it in
Solo
Cash
Cup. So this is a clip of. Can we start the clip again to see what happens here? Yeah. So this is a clip of Cooper, and
You just hear the shouting.
Yeah.
you can easily
this one is my favorite clip.
Oh my god. This clicks one is like one of the worst ones I've seen.
What do you mean Muzzle played him, man? That's it.
So for the audio listeners, they've spotted a team. They're looking to potentially W key get into the box, and clicks, tries to nitro in. Server freezes,
And he's
and when it unfreezes, he's just in both of their boxes. Both of them shotgun out, staring at his face. Yeah, man, this shit is just.
So
you said Loki fixed it. I've just watched 2 from FNTS, so I don't know where this Loki.
No. But Solo Cash Cup
yesterday. Yeah.
Solo Cash Cup yesterday. Apparently, it was better. And a lot of people said they didn't have it as much. But I just thought those moments were funny. As someone who's experienced so many of those moments, like I had one where like me and Minnie on like a 2v2 near like Moneymaker base, right? And I run out of mats, so I dropped low ground, and there was a dead body that I went to go, loot. So I'm running over to the dead body, and I'm running away from a guy who was like I was fighting beforehand, right? As I'm running on low ground, server freezes, unfreezes. I'm teleported 10 meters back, and he's just standing there with shotgun out when he wasn't there before the server froze. Like, yeah, that shit was mad infuriating. I just wanted to show those clips.
You just wanted to complain about your placements. That was it. You just wanted to complain about it.
I love the Cooper tweets this whole like past weekend as well, because like this man just came back from a holiday from Hawaii, you know, and he's got a nice relaxing holiday, and I've never seen a man more defeated than that man.
Right.
Every single time, like it's all compounding together, and it's like the worst season to do it as well. But like, I mean, they fixed it at least, I think, slightly.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll see today in performance eval even more.
There's
But
no
yeah, apparently
performance eval.
None
there's not today.
No,
Metallica
Cup.
Cup.
Metallica Cup, man. Come on, lock it in.
It's a squad cup.
Squad Phil Cup.
Do me a favor, man.
Yeah,
Will be more stacked games in round 3, but
Probably.
better players
right.
as well.
yeah.
We had one more bad that I don't know. Do you still wanna do your bad, Boop? Because I know we.
I think we kind of went. I mean, we kind of talked about it low key about the pros not playing the format. I'll say one thing very quickly. Peterborough and Poyo are underperforming. I think a lot of people, I've seen them say, nah, they're not really underperforming. They saw make round 3 and they got 70 something or something, right? But like, let's be honest, Peterborough and Poyo are underperforming. They didn't qualify to a Cash Cup finals. They didn't qualify to the FNCS finals. How do you have a team that's winning everything last season all of a sudden not placing anymore? And you can blame, you know, the them not having the Grim Gate coin, or you can blame them not trying anymore. But a team of that caliber in NA, that is a tier 1 team that is just 3 months ago, even less, was absolutely winning every single fight possible, having every single pro running away from them, is all of a sudden not placing. I don't believe that them over WK in an FNCS round 3 is the reason why they're not placing anymore. Like, there's something else going on there, whether it's a lack of practice or lack of play in the season. Peterborough and Poyo are underperforming, and what does that mean for them now?
No, and I was
No.
to touch on that. No, sorry, sorry,
No,
sorry,
they're
no,
not.
they're
no,
not.
no. But no, I was going to quickly say about their placement, right? I didn't even realize they got a 31 bomb last game to even come 70th.
Yeah.
Right. So they were nowhere near. It's not even like they were close. But to me, I think from what I've heard, it's like, as you said, it's like they're not trying. That it doesn't seem like Poyo is playing as much this season. But as you said, like to go from
Definitely would be any goat debates.
yeah,
and-
yeah. No, Poyo's not my goat. That's what I'm saying. That was the no. That was what I was thinking about.
That was the
But it's just crazy. It's just crazy. Like, was Grimgate that OP? Is that what we're getting from this? Grimgate.
All right, let's move on. Let's move on. I don't want this Grimgate nonsense.
Yeah.
Bloody hell. We gotta have like a bingo board for the pod. There's like one Grimgate mention every episode. All right, let's do hot take of the week then. I'll start off because my one, there's not really much discussion about my one. And my one's kind of ironic because it's not really a hot take. But okay, look, my hot take is most people in Fortnite ain't got a Scooby-Doo what a fucking hot take is. I'll ask people for like unpopular opinions. I'll ask people. I do a whole podcast with Aussie Antics based around people calling in with their hot takes and unpopular opinions. And like half the time, 80% of the time, it is just not a unpopular opinion or a hot take at all. And it's ironic that my hot take of the week is that because technically my hot take isn't a hot take either, because most people would agree that, yeah, I swear just most people don't have a clue. That's why I was actually very happy and proud of the FNtasia listeners who, when I asked...
The smarters,
The better listeners, of course, yeah.
I didn't say
EU
it.
listeners, it's EU
The boot viewers, of course,
The
yeah.
boot
Yeah.
viewers,
It's not the
Okay,
Aussie
do you know
viewers.
what's-
Come on.
Yeah,
So
come
do you know
on.
what's actually funny though? So I will give you guys the insight here. So obviously I made the tweet saying send your unpopular opinions to the FNtasia account. When I tweeted it, didn't get any good ones. Got one or two. One or two of the good ones. Harry retweeted, not many good ones. Boop retweeted a couple,
Really good ones.
Reese
Solid
retweeted
ones.
a bunch of good ones. So I think
Oh.
Reese
All the
viewers-
casuals.
I think
I
that
think
might have been
Reese
mixed in with
viewers.
mine
The
potentially.
juice.
I think we tweeted at the same time.
Yeah, you guys see it at the same
Yeah.
time, maybe. Okay,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
that's what it is. Yeah,
Sure.
No, all the Mongrel fans are
All the
Risa
Risa viewers,
fans.
they know a hot take when they see
Yeah.
one. I tell you.
They know a hot take. Yeah. So my challenge to the Fortnite community is step it up. Let's think outside the box here. Don't say bring back Siphon when I ask for a fucking unpopular opinion. That is not an unpopular opinion, guys. Fuck.
What about
okay.
nerfing Nitro? Is that an unpopular opinion?
Bro, like I unironically had like a bunch of guys say like nerf. In fact, let me even try find one of the worst like not hot takes.
It's
Let me
probably
see,
like, does anyone think they should add back money to FNCS weeks or something? Should they increase the prize pool?
Do you, do you
one's
think they should improve ranked? So it's actually competitive.
Bring back arena.
Oh,
So your
no,
hot take is there's no hot takes. That's very meta.
That is meta.
But yeah, who's next? Who's next for hot take of the week?
Well,
I saw yours last season, Reese. You can, if you feel.
So I think I actually have a hot take that is very simple and would maybe be unexpected coming from my mouth, but I actually enjoy this season.
Oh, really?
Which I think is a hot take because no one else is enjoying this season, I swear.
Okay. I don't.
What are you enjoying about? Like, what are you?
Everything outside of Nitro, basically, right? Like, we've been landing in the south of the map, and I love the additions down in the south of the map, right? The actual, like, the plants, the layout, the metal that's there, the rotation ability, like, all of the new stuff that's been added on that is great. Obviously, it's just being run in your box by Nitro every single is really annoying. The competitive meta obviously doesn't have cars, so it's not a big problem there. The fists are currently disabled, which is good, but obviously they will return. But regardless, their structure damage. Yeah, you need them, bro. You need them to qual. I saw your 41 points in the solo cash cup. I was like, this boy needs fists.
Me and Levin were in a cool, and
he did shit as well, mate.
Yeah.
I late started. I started like 45 minutes late.
No,
and I
you got 34 points.
Bro, I just trolled. Like I just wasn't even landing at my real spot. I was just trolling.
I will say when fists were in the game, I will agree with you because everything else. Because I felt like I was just like tier 1 fight. I could go to any fight and I knew I could win. Like I knew with fists, I'm just gonna punch them up and win.
Yeah.
With Nitro's in the game, I don't think I've had less fun playing Fortnite, but I don't think I've been more addicted to playing Fortnite. Like I'm sat there at 11 last night, readying up to. I've got 40 points in EU, and I played no end games, and I've unironically gone. You know what I need? Brazil build is what I need right now.
After the news dropped, the region lock, which I was going to talk about later, DJ messaged me and he was like, right, tomorrow for Duo Cash Cup, or Wednesday Duo Cash Cup, we're going to play Middle East, EU, and then a bit of Brazil afterwards. I was like, no, we're not. I mean, like, what the fuck are you smoking, man?
I'm saying that, but
it's, I think like genuinely, I'm not going to say Nitro is counterable because it's absolutely not. But there are ways that you can counter it to an extent, like number one, if you're in a mid-game position, do not box up on low ground. It's just, you're gonna die. Ramp up 3 or 4 layers and that immediately will not stop it, but it'll lower your chances. Ramps in your box instantly. Build and metal in all those later mid games as well. And like some people still be stupid, like it's still going to happen. But looking back at all the times people ran in our box during FNCS, like it was minorly preventable. Like it was some of the dumbest plays I've ever seen. Like people don't shoot you, and you've just like there was one where I've just tarped into 7th zone in a full metal tunnel, and I just start getting shot in my back. And DJ was behind me. I was like, what is going on here? And a duo has just full nitroed in, no information, cap mats. I'm like, you guys, and then they build fight us in like 7th zone or something. Really smart play. Thank you, Middle East guys. So it's the nitro sucks. But I think all the other additions this season, the meta is actually looking like it's in a pretty good spot.
I was going to say, to add on to your point, so basically what you're saying, and I agree with it, is like the map changes are enjoyable to play.
Yeah.
All the map changes that got added, the fire rings, the nitro barrels, the slurp cacti, the metal on the south side of the map. There's so much natural mobility around the map. They kept the dashboard to basically land anywhere apart from Rebel's Roost. You've got something that you can rotate with in the mid game, right? But the mobility meta is the worst it's been in a long time. So if they could just make, I think I did see a couple of pros say this on Twitter as well, is just make the mobility meta enjoyable. Like imagine if they had grapples in the season or something like that. People would enjoy the season so much.
I mean, I think nitros are good mobility. Like there's skillful mobility, in particular in mid game. Like there's a real chance of you have to sit and think like a risk to reward of, do I use them now earlier on and get through like these late mid games and get to a really good position early, or do I just have to use them late? Like obviously the destruction element of it and the structure damages was awful, but the actual mobility aspect of nitros I really like, and their balance for end game too. It's just that like if them and fists come back, it'll just be kind of like the mobility will be crazy and it'll be very boring end games from that side. But even though I actually quite like the meta outside of being run on by nitros.
I might qualify if it's come back though, so that's always a positive.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I think the reason why you like the meta is because I don't think you get into enough fights. I'm looking at your I'm looking at Fortnite, okay?
No, we lose
Average
enough fights.
But he's got the evidence. He's
Average
just
eliminations 1.2, 3 kills, 1 kill, 2 kill, 1 kill, 1 kill.
You're actually the nerd.
I don't think you're running. I don't
actually-
think you're running
So-
into enough situations of fights where you're like, oh wow, I really just got fucked. Like
that is
I mean-
because
Yeah,
of the
okay.
new season allows me to not do that.
Play
That's
Storm
the
with
thing.
all the
Is
cacti.
this a sponsored message?
That's
I
what I'm
love this
saying.
season.
No,
the
no.
new dynamics, the nitro holes,
Oh, no.
the slurp
Bruv,
plants.
you've
it
seen my
allows me to
tweets,
run
you'll know
away.
that's absolutely not true. But no,
Reese, if
like-
I looked at your the time in Storm, how high would it be?
Not that high. I'm a bush guy. I'm a bush guy. I'm not a storm
I
guy.
see, okay.
They're the
yeah,
two types of guy. There's
That-
take all Storm sickness, 10 minutes in Storm in the mid game so you don't get
That-
keyed and go
that's
full
you
jets
two.
like that.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
is me up here as well.
Bush
or
guy.
Or
Yeah,
use
yeah,
the
yeah.
fire rings, go center map and just sit in a bush.
Yes, that was mine.
I
So-
tuned
yeah.
into DJ stream once, and it was you were dead side, and you just get W by a team. You're like, what are these fucking idiots doing?
Oh my
Why
God.
are you pushing me? Why are you
No,
pushing
no.
me? You don't need to fight me right now. There's 30 players alive. We could just farm placement.
Yeah,
This sounds
that was
like
that was playing
school.
Middle East though. Like generally, like you get W keyed. I got tagged for 50, and they're literally build fighting in 7th zone, like 8 tiles high. I'm like, what is going on here? What is the benefit of this? But that's Middle
They
East.
saw
That's like that was
weakness.
just Middle East. It was. I mean, that is what it is. But no, I think it's okay. There you go. That's my hot take.
that's
I think
Brazil
that's
as
a
well.
hot take. I think that's
That
a
is
No,
a
I
hot
hot
think, I
take.
think that's I like that. That's
Yeah.
a good one. What's your hot take of the week, bro?
All right, so mine is similar to that one, and it bases off of Resub and BloodX's performance this weekend, and it is that qualifying for any tournament in general isn't difficult. You're the problem. And I mean this wholeheartedly because I see a lot of pros complaining about format, about meta, all that stuff. You are the problem. You are not playing Fortnite correctly. And that is as someone that is the ultimate backseater in Fortnite. Is this man right here, Leo_HD, BloodX, can qualify to an FNCS Heats? You're doing something wrong, right? And you can say that it's boring to not W here. It's boring to play placement, but that's the game that you signed up for. You're not playing CSGO. You're not playing Tekken where you're uppercutting motherfuckers and stuff, right? Like you're playing
I wish.
Fortnite where you're sitting in
Well,
bases
you are
and
in this
tagging.
meta.
Yeah, you are in this meta, to be fair. Not yet, because it's vaulted. But like, it's not that hard to just play good Fortnite, but play consistent. And I know there's going to be pros that rebuttal this with like, yeah, but like, it's boring to sit in a box, and like, you have to W because people are so shit. But at the end of the day, you are the problem. If you can't qualify to a solo victory cup at prime age of 18 or 19 years old as a professional Fortnite player, you can't blame solos being shit. You're shit for not learning how to play Fortnite correctly and playing the format. They changed the format to 65 points per win, 1 point per elimination. Destiny's Jesus is getting 108 points a solo cash cup. How are you letting that happen? You fucking suck. That's it.
He's primed up right now.
Yeah, but
He-
DJ has
he's
too
He
much
is
right
primed
now.
up, yeah.
Mate,
So that's my
I'm
hot take,
pumping
is
out-
that
that's a good
you
one.
suck. That's it.
Wow.
Valid
Tell
take.
him.
That's
Tell
a
him.
valid
And you
take.
can
Tell
say
him again.
you can say I suck. I know I suck, but I'm not the one playing. I'm
Yeah.
wasting my time playing these tournaments.
If you do badly this season, like you can be like, oh, I did bad a game or two, right? Oh, I got nitroed in on or whatever. And that, like, say for, let's take like FNCS round 4 or 3 where it's, or to get into round 4, sorry, where it's 1k to top 50 in this meta, like, maybe you can die one game at a bad time and you just drop out of 50th. Like, say if you're placing like 60th or something like that,
Yeah.
I can understand, right? Especially if you're a team who always qualifies. It's a one-off. Like, you're going to have those like bad sequence of games. I get it. But if you're someone who consistently does not qualify for solos, for duos, for FNCS, whatever it is, and you're making these excuses, you are the problem. I 100% agree.
Harry, what's your hot take?
All EU teams on NA will qualify to globals.
Wow.
Classic.
Need I say
bias.
more? Classic EU bias. We might be finished with the region watching it, but all the EU teamers on NA are performing well. You got every single one from Quanti and Yapko, Kylie and Vert, even Mongrel and Savage, and then obviously you have the top teams. Pink, Tayson, Vino, and then Blackja and Mixon. I think those 7 teams are all performing at a good level, have good situation at land spot. The only worry I have out of them all is Quanti and Yapko aren't performing as well as, they have shown some games or some tournaments.
So not as consistent.
Yeah, not as consistent, right? And then also, I think Paco and Vortec, their landing spot situation, because they landed at Levis in finals, but from what I know, they don't land there in like all the other rounds. So they might become a problem when it comes to like grand finals or anything like that. But I think all of them are performing at a good enough level. You can easily make arguments for all of them to qualify to globals, in my opinion.
Mongrel Savage?
Mongrel Savage, I think the biggest problem they have, well, Duo Cash Cup, they came 15th, but obviously Duo Cash Cup take it with a pinch of salt, right? And with only 5 games played. But the biggest thing for me is for Mongrel and Savages, their landing spot in finals, I think it's really, really good. It's a spot, first of all, south of the map. You're giving yourself a huge chance if you land south of the map, right? Mm-hmm. And then also the rotations from there with all the firings you have nearby, all the slurp cacti you can use to get surge with. Like, I just think it's a really nice spot. Well, it's the Reese hub split, it's a good spot to land at,
They land the same spot we are.
Yeah, they're landing
your spot, yeah.
They are landing our spot, yeah.
I'm surprised. You got a team
maybe that's why it became... So it wasn't conned there for, like... There was 0 people contesting for, like, the first 3 tournaments of the season, and now every single time we land there's like 4 kids. I'm like, that makes a lot more sense now, the Mongrel and Savage spot.
Yeah, it's funny because Mongrel and Savage are saying the same thing. Like, why are we getting so conned all of a
bro,
sudden?
yeah.
What's happening here?
And that spot, Condon Opens, is one of the worst spots because the loot is just everywhere. You need to claim it, and if there's one team splitting it with you, you're gonna get scuffed.
Yeah, they just get pushed by the rig team as soon as you start fighting because they just sprint over. So yeah,
straight at you.
But yeah, all EU teams taking all the NA spots. I'll be ready. I'll have my. I'll take Boop's EU flag he has. I'll put it around me when on the stream after NA Grand Finals. I'll be there.
It's keeping me warm this season. It's keeping me so.
Have you been whipping it out on your viewing parties?
I have.
Well, hold on.
Whoa.
Clip that out of context. I haven't had a need to whip it out yet because the players are speaking for themselves.
I just realized what I said.
Yeah, you didn't realize that.
How did you just realize that now?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He's so young.
Well, I'll ask you guys, how many of the EU teams, so the 7 main ones, which is Kylie and Vert, Yapko and Quanti, you've got Blatcher Mixon, FNtasia, Vino Clicks, Yomzo Taste, and Pink Mirror, and Blatcher. I think it's a Blatcher Mixon twice, but whatever. The 7 teams, right?
Mongrel Savage.
How many? Mongrel Savage, that was the one I missed. Yeah. How many of those do you think qualify to globals?
Clicks and Vino.
I agree.
I think all of them except Paco and Mongrel Savage.
Yeah, I think Yapko and Quanti's like, I think we'll make it, but
I'm saying I'm adding them to my. I'm saying 4 then.
4.5.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah, Pink and Miro, Clicks and Veno, Blaha Mixon, and
that's it. Yomzo
Tayson, yeah, 4.
So you're not on the Mongrel and Savage hype train yet.
Not currently.
That Duo Cash Cup, 5 games in Duo Cash Cups. That wasn't enough. The Duo Cash Cup, not enough to get on the hype train.
I mean, the problem is Bloodix is going to be too focused on qualifying his own grand finals now. He's not going to have time to prep Mongrel Savage. He's on his own lane now.
That's why they didn't do so well in round 3 because Bloodix was getting the champagne out for qualifying.
Yeah, he was tired too after the 6-hour grind.
Well, that is an interesting thing. I've not been watching as much of like their streams POVs, but like how much attention has Bloodix been giving Mongrel and Savage relative to Clicks and Veno? Because that was always the biggest problem straight away. Like I remember instantly when I like found out that they were thinking about moving, I asked them like, if they move, like, are you still you're not gonna be able to live coach them? Because like Clicks, right? And it's like, because I know Yomzo and Tayson, he doesn't really have to like talk much to them because Tayson doesn't really like having people in his call and contributing. So cool, that's fine. You don't worry about them. But like Clicks historically has needed blood in Grands, but Mongrel and Savage, if they make it to Grands, which I think they will need, if they want to call globals, they will need him there every step of the way. But is he going to be able to do that if he's doing the same? But I don't know how he's been balancing it so far. From what I've seen, it seems like after the dual Cash Cup, Bloodix have been putting a lot more effort into Clicks and Veno because they needed that shift. So slightly less for Mongrel Savage, but I think the majority of the time he's been Mongrel Savage's games and coached them, except for in the finals, obviously when they didn't qualify. But I think he's Mongrel Savage focused currently, as far as I've seen. Okay, but like
I mean, it's a question of like which eggs you need to put your basket in as a coach as well. Like, Clicks Event have the potential to win FNCS, Mongo Savage don't. That's simple
Right.
as. And can BloodX be the difference if he puts a little bit more effort into it? Potentially, yeah. So it's a hard spot for him, especially because probably one of them's paying them more.
Has both teams made it to upper bracket?
Not yet.
Mongo
and
Savage
would
haven't, no.
need-
Okay,
they
I was
would
about to
need
say
the goods.
he'll be too busy playing lower bracket, so if they're in the same bracket, it might be over. But I forgot that's EU to
Yeah.
It might be cooked. All right. Some random bits of news that came out. Obviously, we kind of already mentioned it. As of the day we're recording this, yesterday they just randomly removed region lock. Like, it was the most
Finally.
random bomb we've received in terms of news lately. They just took it off, and all of us decided to play Brazil afterwards. Other than Reese, because he's an old man and had to sleep.
I was asleep by 10 o'clock. I was not waiting
Yeah.
up till 11 to play that shit, man.
Don't blame you. But I mean, the community have rejoiced, and rightfully so. It is so nice to just be able to play whatever the hell I want to play now on any region.
So good. This is removed. It was removed before Invitational, because that was obviously the season that Queasy and Vino were dominating on NA Elite Cups just before that, if I do remember correctly. So that's been like almost a year and a half, maybe a year and 3/4, however long it's been. So if you think about it, there's probably players who started playing competitive only after region lock had been added. They never knew the region lock removal times. They never knew a world where you could just play Middle East and give up because it was so boring, or stay up so late and play an NA Cash Cup and be like, why am I playing on this laggy server? I don't know what I'm doing. It's been... I mean, the real winners here are the squads who play the solo zero build PlayStation Cups and team on every region. Now they don't have to just like fake their way into another region. So winners for them.
No, I think the most exciting thing for me, obviously, apart from duo cash cups, right? Duo cash cups are going to be so much more enjoyable to watch, right? You're going to see the cross-region beef, and it's going to be much more interesting. To me, what is the ceiling? And I made a tweet about this earlier, right? With region locks being removed, and we'll talk about a bit with the ELO and finals being removed for solos, what do you think the highest ceiling of amount of money someone can make on one day throughout the 6 regions? So you have OC, Asia, Middle East, EU, NA, Brazil, right? How much money do you actually think someone can make in one day?
I mean, adding OCE and Middle East doesn't really add much to your winnings in terms of prize pool. Let's be real.
No, solos. I'm talking about solos.
Because solo. Because if you
Solo
on a day of
solos.
solo cash cup, where it's like...
Yeah.
So mathematically, what could you... So if you won
You
all
can play
3
all the
games
finals.
of finals... Can you play the finals of ME?
I made a
Yeah.
schedule. You can play
Okay, you
16 hours in a row.
Yeah, you can. You missed OC on that as well, Booth.
Yeah,
in
did
that
I?
schedule.
Okay.
Yeah, which
So you
18
can
hours
play
ago.
all the finals.
you can play all the finals.
So in
Finals.
theories, so on 6 regions, mathematically, so you could in max you could make is $1,800.
We'll say fine. I'm gonna say by the end of the season, what do you think the max is someone makes, and by in a year's time? Like, what do you think?
Is anyone that jobless to do that though?
To
That's the
play
question.
all the regions, yeah.
Like, how broke are we to play 18 hours? Oh, okay.
I feel like Harry's he's not making any money.
Yeah,
so
he
it's
has the
18
passion, but he doesn't
hours.
have the placement.
yeah.
How
I
many
mean,
more cash cups do we have this season? Solos?
every week.
But so like we have like 5 weeks left of that. then?
I think we have like 5 or 6. I think we have 6. It was 9.
So I think by the end of this season, the max we'll see somebody make will be $500. I can see a world
fall
where
off that already, no? Because won 3 games.
Exactly. Yeah, so I can see a world where somebody like this season, I can see a world where somebody they win 3 on their region and then 2 on another region.
Mm-hmm.
Over the course of a year, if we have it like this, I could see someone making 1K.
I see. This was my tweet. People call me
see
delusional. You know what?
someone
I
making 1K.
think someone will be able to make 1K in a day.
I can
from
see that
solos.
happening. I can see that.
What you would do is you play zero build all the regions because it's easier. You
Oh,
just
yeah,
you
I
get
didn't
some
even think
zero
about zero builds.
Oh, well,
just-
Yeah, but you just run into
yeah.
cheaters though. That's
Can
the
you?
main
Yeah,
thing.
there's no way you win 3 without either down to a cheater or in solos. Just like in the RNG of winning 3 solo zero build games.
But you don't. You
Yeah.
only have
You
to
know.
do that on like one. So for example, right, this is what I think. So obviously, 1K. So you 10 wins over 6 regions. You win. Let's say one on. Let's just say an EU player. 1 on OC, 1 on Asia. Right. You take 1 on each. That makes it 2, and then you win 5 in between EU and Middle East. Whatever it is, you win 3 on Middle East or 3 on EU. That gets you to 7, and then you need to win maybe 1 zero build in Brazil and then 2 on NA.
That's
It's
just
a
not
lot.
happening. It's just
Nah,
not happening.
when you say it like that, it just seems like too
Yeah.
much.
Nah,
I
think
think-
500,
that
500,
sounds
500.
that sounds like a job for Malabuka. Like I feel like that's
Yeah.
Malabuka can do that, right? Like 2
I-
games in the EU, win a 0 game of Asian, and they like he would probably try it. He probably will actually play all of them. At
Yeah,
this
I was
point.
gonna
I'll
say-
change my mind. I don't think at 1K. I'm gonna just lower it a bit to like 800.
I-
I think at 1K, that's a lot of games.
That's
man.
a lot of games.
I think this is going to be, to me, this is like going to be more exciting to watch than like the kill race. They're like, even though it's very jobless, but like over a day, seeing who can like you know, if you got Malabuka, you've got Muzz going for it as well. Muzz will be up there. competing
Buzz
for it
will be,
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you have the dedication to play 16 hours of Fortnite, just find a real job. Like your passion, dedication, skills are so much better suited to finding the cure to cancer, for example. You know, like same as the people that do like the infinite flying shots. Like every season they find out new shit. Like you have the dedication to do something else with your life. Just do it, man. Like it's
16 hours of the fly
$800
strap.
in one day. You can make that doing something else, you know, and a lot less tiring, a lot less mentally taxing.
But this is where we need Prime Mars OW and we need Prime Ando back in the game. These
Yeah.
two with the
Oh.
flop. If this were in the game, I actually think someone could make like 700-800 like this season.
Potentially,
With this, I
yeah.
think it's very, very, very easy to do on high pick. With
True.
Nitro's a lot less easy.
Bro just said we need Prime Ando.
No one has
Bro, he
ever
was the
uttered that
goat.
sentence before.
He was the 300 ping goat with all his floppers and just
That
shot
is
them.
true.
That's it.
No.
That is very true.
He
Very,
did
very true.
revolutionize the solo cash cup pick laggy heal meta, you know?
No, he did.
He walked
did.
your Kraken run.
Maybe he finishes army duties now, and it just did time. This is why they brought it back. He's finished it. this time.
Yeah.
Well, actually, so again, on the next news thing I was going to mention was just the fact that they removed Elo, and we obviously kind of touched on it. You can now play free games, and win free games of the solo cash cup within the hour because, yeah, the problem in the past was that due to point-based Elo, if you won 2 games, your queue would be too long for you to be able to get in to the third game more often than not. But now that they removed that, we literally saw it instantly. Vanyak in the finals yesterday of EU won 3 out of 3 games. First person to ever do it. So big ups to Vanyak.
One thing I found really funny about this, I had to find the tweet again in reference to this. I love Aussie, love you Aussie, but you made one of the droniest tweets I think I've ever seen in my life. He put Vanyak has officially won 3 of 3, and then just put the solo goat. I was like, this does not make you. This in no way. This in no way qualifies you to be to make an Elo-less top 7,003 game wins as the solo goat.
Was
Aussie,
it Vanyak that
Aussie,
dropped the
come on.
30 bomb last season as well? Or was that Swizzy?
No, Swizzy.
That was
Swizzy
Swizzy.
I think he mistook
38.
Swizzy
Yeah,
and
38.
Vanyak then. I think he probably thought,
did.
yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because like you hear Elo's been removed from finals, you're like, oh my god, the hype. Who's gonna get those 3 wins? How long is it gonna take? It took 1 hour, and then we got it, and that was it. And then we finally had it. It was like, well, all the hype has just gone already. I thought it was gonna be some, you know.
To be
that was-
fair, it was a banger game. Like for nobody that watched it, it was like Noah won this first game, Vanya won his first game. Noah won his second game, Vanya won his second game. They were queuing up, 3 minutes left to go. They got into the same game. It's like, oh my god, who's gonna win their third game? And Malabuka was also in that game alongside Wheat and all the other pros. Because obviously, if you have 5 minutes left in the tournament, only good players are gonna be left in the tournament most of the times because they're the ones queuing up late. And then like they both landed at the same jaw spot as well. They contested each other. They shot at each other. They ended up running away. It was like, okay, and then Noah died mid game, and then Vanya ended up winning the game. It was hype. It was actually very, very enjoyable to watch. So good change in that fact for Elo at least.
Yeah, for sure. The other random news thing that's not really relevant anymore, but it was pretty funny when it happened. The update last week like broke the game, and you couldn't go to the south of the map.
Hey, we love that.
That was some. It was to the point like I was trying to test things to figure out what would work and what wouldn't. So basically, I heard on Twitter the Asia FNCS winner last season job came in chat. It's like you can't land in the south area, and I was like, well, that's just not real, is it? Like there's no update that's ever happened where a third of the map you can't land in. So I get in the game, I'm gliding over, and I'm like, oh, it looks pretty fine, and then my game just crashes, or you just get kicked out of the game, right? And there was like an area, it was like perfect area around like it was from rig to like Cami split to like halfway in Snooty and like a circle around there, even to like the water out on the map, you couldn't go in. And I generally don't think I've ever seen Epic mess something up so badly to the point that you actually cannot play the game.
Yeah,
But it's fixed.
It is
Yeah.
fixed.
It
Yeah,
was
it's funny
fixed,
because
yes.
I was actually in replay. I was recording clips that morning for a video in replay, and I was in Nitrodrome, and it was fine. So it works fine in replay mode, which was really
Yeah.
funny. But then, because when I saw you say that, I was like, "Wow, that was weird." I was flying about there, and then I jumped into game. I was like, "Oh no, my game
Oh,
crashed."
yeah.
Because the thing is, the
man.
bus came out, so like the bus went over it, and I just instantly backed out. I was like, "Oh, I didn't even get to jump out of the bus."
No way.
Yeah.
The funniest thing about that was the console. It didn't happen on console. So I have clips of a couple of my mods are console players, and they were just playing around an arena and like baiting people into the sand area. And, like
That's
they'd
so
be
fucked.
they'd be like on a car chase. They get purposely low. They'd be driving away into the sand, and as they get into the sand, they just disappear. The car.
That is insane. I thought
funny.
it was funny because I saw like a tweet from Avanosaurus, who's like one of the senior programmers at Epic, you know, and he basically like just. I think he like showed a screenshot of like the message on his phone he woke up to. It's like, hey, you are being called in for an emergency meeting right now. Like,
There's
I
been
can
a lot
imagine
of those
that,
lately, I think.
a lot
Yeah.
of them, yeah, I'm sure. But it's like, imagine waking up to that as like a dev of like, yeah, the south of like, you can't go into it. Like,
He's like, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
Yeah,
Like,
what do
like,
you mean?
The
I
entirety
just
of the
walked
south
into it.
side? Are you-
Yeah, what do you mean you
Fucking-
can't go into it? It's still there on the map.
yeah, like what do you mean? Yeah, like what are you talking about? Yeah, shout out to Fortnite, man. Shout out to Fortnite. Let's wrap up then. It's been a good show. I think in terms of I know we've been talking about our duo progress here and there where we can. I know Reese, you recently and you and DJ decided to obviously take things more serious. You're playing Middle East FNCS, like come on man, what's the update,
So-
man? Are you guys pros now or what?
Yeah, absolutely. We were playing the Nikkei 30 Skin Cup, and I couldn't play EU in the evening, so I was like, why don't we just play some Middle East for fun? And we started playing it, and the players were actually so horrifically bad that convinced us to decide to play Middle East FNCS.
Wow.
And that is not a start. Like, it was actually, you wouldn't believe how bad the players were in that. And we actually still did not get top 200, which is what you need to get a skin, but it was because we actually didn't get into the last game. We were like top 150, and then we didn't get into the last game. Thank you. Maybe if there was no elo, like Kin
Maybe,
said in
yeah.
that cup,
Yeah.
we would have been fine. But no, that was just a bit bad RNG. But so we're like, we'll play Middle East. I kind of was like, he really wanted to, and I wasn't sure. But I have a really great video title in my head, which I won't leak quite yet, depending on how we do. Or maybe for future podcast. If we dud next week, then I probably won't make the video. So there's potential for it. So I'll come up with that. So we played round one. We played horrifically, like truly awfully. And the first two games, it was like top 8 and a top 4 with like 1 and 2 kills or something like that. And then it looked at leaderboards, and we were like 80th. I was like, oh, this is new. Okay, yeah. So opens was super easy. It was just, we were just kind of playing bad, and it was still fine. Round 2, we started cooking the first couple games, chilling. We were top 24.
Damn.
Which
After 2 games, right?
After 2 games, which in round 2, which is all we need to, if we get top 50, we're into finals, in the weekly finals. And we then had a bit of a dud game, and then it basically we just kept getting W keyed off spawn, like we were conned, and then it was like rig team would push. We made the mistake basically of just shooting people around us, and then the whole lobby just like runs in on you at that point, which in that spot was pretty bad. So that was our bad. And other games we got into good positions has got nitroed in on, which again was why I was saying about learning about that, because we have had that happen many times to us. So we've been playing pretty good, to be honest, lately. We've been playing. Boop, I'll give you some props here. We've been playing Noble, not the good Noble, but the last few days
open one.
we've been playing opens, and even though zone rules
best
scrims,
Noble.
like I'm not gonna. I mean, thing is, like literally because ranked is so shit this season,
It's actually
literally
fun.
Yeah.
It's
I
literally
enjoy
the
it.
best practice you can get right now. So
I enjoy
so,
opens.
Of course it is.
yeah. So we've been playing
Free
opens.
plug.
Yeah,
It
free
always
plug,
is the
I
best
would.
practice boot.
Oh, it's always been the best practice. Noble, of course.
Yeah.
I'm not trolling, by the way. Like
Yeah.
I've actually
Yeah,
been
no,
enjoying
not either.
playing Noble Opens.
Yeah, shout out
it's been fun.
noble.disco.gg/eu. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so we've been doing that, and like we've been playing much better. So my damage ratio in round 2 was
this is so
0.46, and Deej was like 2 or something.
Levin, your face dropped.
So
What? Were you
unreal.
just AFK or what?
No, I was just shooting the air, mate. Like it was crazy. I was shot. Like it wasn't like I wasn't shooting. It was just not going anywhere. It was like trying to get used to ADS aim in a laggy lobby. Real different. And my ADS aim's ass anyway. So I've been Kovacsing every day for like an hour so far, and my aim has skyrocketed in close range, but my ADS is still kind of shit. So yeah, put in some work this week. I'm going to play some scrims after this, I think, and hopefully we qual semis. If literally all we need to do is get top twos, like 260 points or something in semis next week, and we make it to.
I'm sad. Me and Minnie tried to play FNCS, but when we can't, like in the rules, when you're a caster, you're not allowed to play. A funny story for people who don't know is Takata back in the day was an NA West pro, and he would do the broadcast for the Spanish EU broadcast. And in one season, he quals for NA West finals because it's NA West. And he gets banned on the game because he's not allowed to play because he's a cast off FNCS. I actually did try and get it changed. I tried to get the rule changed. I asked somebody at Epic, but yeah, they couldn't do anything for me. So no, I'm not gonna give up. I'm fighting for this. This is gonna be my life's mission. So that me and
you'll be so
play.
old by the time that you'll be able to play that it'll just be you'll be out of your prime then, you know.
Yeah, my what's it called from your video? My brain loading time or whatever the fuck.
Come on.
No, it's like just brain latency.
Doing latency. Come on.
My look doing latency.
That's the one. Jesus
you know what?
Christ.
When you said that, by the way, and you just started describing it, I was like, no wonder I feel so shit. Like, no wonder, like that is actually why I'm bad. It's just like I'm just like an NPC when it comes to like understanding situations.
Absolutely. So yeah,
you're a boop on the skill on that conversation.
But in the Cash Cup, was it last week's Cash Cup? Yeah, in the Cash Cup, me and Minnie did outplace Malibuka and Mustache. We got top 3K. I think that's worthy of a Noble.
Shout out Noble again. Yeah.
I think we should.
You know what? If you guys, you know, it might be time to get you guys both into the next session after the podcast and just see who places highest. Yeah,
we actually
get you guys
do
both
that.
into the Div 3 session, see what happens. Get you an invite.
Yeah, I'd like an invite as well.
As long as I'm on con, I can't be arsed to play things not on con.
Yeah. Only the good players in the podcast. Yeah.
Only the good players.
Just
not the
resub
players who
and
collect-
11. Yeah.
Not the players that speed run every.
It's actually incredible how shit you are without Nitro Fist, Harry. It's like
It's so bad.
to be discussed.
It's actually embarrassing. Yeah.
Do you want me to go through our thought process of what happened? So we started FNCS an hour and a half late because Aiden hadn't done the update. So we started an hour and a half late. We get first game we go into. We're keying, it's all good. Aiden's like, my shotgun's not shooting. I'm like, well, what do you mean like, your shotgun's not shooting? Well, what do you mean your shotgun's not shooting? Basically, he had a bug where if he shot anywhere, it would count the bullet. But if he shot at a player, the bullet wouldn't come out. So he had no shotgun game one. He would drop it, pick it up, any shotgun, it wouldn't work. So we're in literally 0 points, an hour and a half in it. We can't key because he can't use a shotgun, right? And the players are actual NPCs. Like they are actual NPCs. So we get like a 15 kill game one. And then game two are like, all right, we're still like top 20k after a 15 kill win. Let's just key again. And then, milk, you know, I basically die nitroing, and then we're just stuck top 10k. And we're like, all we need, right, is just one 20 kill win, and we're right back in it. We chase the 20 kill win for the next 8 games. And then, there we go. That has been our the past 2 taunts we've played with duos, because, when it came to Fist, we could chase the 20 kill win, and it'll be easy because, well, it's Fist. But with Nitros, you try and chase. I actually have to shoot my guns, which, you know, it's not really something I'm good at. You know, actually shooting and hitting.
We established that. You
know. Or even building as well. You know, just punching into a box. You know, much better at that. But I think this time, half an hour late start because Aiden has work, so we can't start on time. Get the key game, and then we can actually play end games and not just chase the key game from game one. Because we just key rig and we land brawlers, and every single game. We don't learn from it. It was like, okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to do this new strat. We're going to fizz, ring onto rig, and then the entire lobby's going to go onto us. It's like, next game, there's no way everyone's still there. And then we just do the same, and the same thing happens for 8 games in a row.
Every time.
Harry's saying this. I just know next week we're going to be like, how was FNTS, Harry? Yeah, we didn't qualify. Okay. Let's be honest with ourselves, man. Come on.
I haven't played an endgame with nitros in the game. I'm yet to play one. The only endgames I've played is OC zero build. That's the only endgames I've played so far with
That's
Nitrous
an
in the
endgame.
game. That is, hold on. My 15 movings are endgames.
Did you try claiming OC zero build
Yeah.
as an end game?
Yes, an
You man
endgame. It's an
sick.
endgame.
He's so proud of it too. Like he goes
You fucking disgust me.
It's the most fun I've had playing Fortnite since the Nitros are in the game. Is playing OC zero build. Like actually, it's enjoyable. You wake up in the morning, it's like, oh, it starts at 9 o'clock. You play one game, it's 50 points to qualify. So you call on 1 or 2 games, you go do whatever, and then you come back and you play the finals. And
Are you going to
it's
play
fun.
zero build or build though? Now that the region lock's removed.
Oh, I'm playing the full 16 hours. I don't know what I'm playing, but we'll figure out from there.
Well, zero build or
we need a
build though,
spreadsheet
you know?
of all of Harry's placement
Oh.
in the 16-hour grind.
Yeah,
And then you bring it to the podcast as homework next week.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can just tweet out after the Duo Cash Cup. These are the Coach Harry placements from this.
I'm
week.
sure that will bang numbers. Yeah.
That's how we're ending. That's how we're ending next week's pod. All right. Thank you very much, guys, for hanging out. Thank you to all the people who have listened. If you've made it this far into the podcast, what should they comment down below, Reese? Go on, tell us. What should they comment?
Nope, you can't do that one.
Well,
Full piece. Say full piece.
Full piece in the comment section below if you've made it to this point in the podcast. Yeah, we will see you guys all before. I can't speak English. Be sure to follow all the boys on social media at Reese Hub for Reese, at Boop NL _ on Twitter for Boop, at Coach Harry _ We got some underscore lads here. Me and
The
Reese are
copy.
clearly
Man, imagine,
superior.
look at this
Cool.
poor
Right.
marketing from these boys.
Disgusting.
I tried
Absolutely
buying
disgusting.
it. Just she didn't want to give it to me. So
Unlucky.
as is with life, yeah.
As is with life. Well, we'll see you guys all on the next episode. Thank you for hanging out, and peace.
Bye bye.
Beep beep.